Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, rude Karen demands to eat my food, gets taught a lesson. I, 24 male, live with my flatmate Tommy, who's 25. A few weeks ago, Tommy asked if his girlfriend Bella, who's 26, could stay with us for 2 weeks. She's moving apartments and has time between leases. I begrudgingly agreed on the condition that she won't bother me for anything. I do not like Bella, mainly because she constantly picks fights with Tommy over dumb things. I also find her to be entitled, lacking empathy, and having "I'm the main character" energy. She's entertaining, but I think she's unpleasant to be around overall. So this morning was her first morning of living with us. I'm in the kitchen making my breakfast. Bella comes out, goes through our fridge, and pulls out my fruit and my Greek yogurt. I notice and tell her that both of these are mine, and she can eat from Tommy's groceries, which are all on the left side of the fridge. She then tells me, "But Tommy doesn't have fruit." I tell her there's a grocery store across the street. For some background, I plan out everything I eat each week, gym bro style. Unless my girlfriend wants to go out, I'll eat every meal at home. I also hate wasting food. I go grocery shopping once a week and I buy exactly what I know will be eaten in 1 week. No more, no less. Most weeks I cook for my girlfriend and/or get her snacks and plan my groceries accordingly. But this week, she's out of town visiting family, and I have no food to spare. I'm cutting right now and will fall asleep hungry and cranky if I miss a single snack. That's why I'm unwilling to share. Anyways, Bella said that I'm being stingy and selfish and a bad host. I told her she isn't my guest. I'm letting her stay with us as a favor to Tommy, but I'd prefer if she wasn't here. She told me that this is why I'm single. She doesn't know that I have a girlfriend because she doesn't bother asking about my life, and I'm happy to not share. I told her I'd rather stay single than date someone like her, and she's lucky Tommy puts up with her. She went running to Tommy, demanding he make me apologize. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and I think you already know that. She can control and manipulate her boyfriend, but not you. If she takes any more food from you, bill her with interest. OP. The main reason I feel bad is that this is probably gonna rebound to Tommy. He apologized on her behalf and said that if he were me, he'd stand his ground without apologizing for anything. But he also said it would make his life easier if I did, which I already knew. Not the jerk. She's not your girlfriend or your responsibility. You told her right. If she wants fruit, the store's around the corner. It sounds like she isn't used to hearing the word no. Not the jerk. You have no obligation to make Tommy's life easier by letting his girlfriend walk all over you. You also have no obligation to feed her. With a store across the street, she's just being an entitled brat, and you shouldn't let her get away with it. I just can't imagine someone letting me live with them rent-free and me not repaying them by buying groceries or something, maybe cooking a few meals, let alone expecting them to provide for me. That's some crazy entitlement. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let Bella eat your food or not? Please let us know. I'd find a new roommate is what I'd do. Tommy boy ain't got no spine. My wife married me because of my best friend. We are from the same high school. Apparently, my wife had a huge crush on my best friend since junior high, and my best friend knew about this. So it's been 10 years since we got married, and she still loves him. That makes it 10 plus years of one-sided love from her to him and 12 years of my one-sided love to her. She only got close to me and dated me so she could be in touch with my best friend. She wanted to be a part of his life no matter what, so she chose me as a scapegoat. And here I thought that she loved me. How did I find this out? She told me 3 weeks ago. Why did she tell me? Because I decided we were ready to have kids, and I brought up the discussion over dinner. She told me she could make love with me, she could marry me, and even act like she loved me, and obviously did a good job at it. But she can't bear to give birth to a kid that's mine and not his. She can't give birth to a kid who looks like me and not him. So she can't have my baby. Then she left me that day. She didn't even say sorry. Not that it would make it any better, but she did say that she did her best. Did her best, and this is what it is. That's the end of the story. I have no more to tell. She just left and isn't picking up my calls, emails, texts, or whatever way of contacting her. I haven't reached out to my best friend either. I know they're not together. Actually, maybe I'll be happy for her if she does end up with him at this point. And here I am, not even feeling anything, and I'm not sure if this is normal. This feels like a whole big play. I'm not even sure if I even put this in the right text. Thank you for all your concerns, and just to clear some things up. We did talk about having kids before this, a couple of times actually, but I wasn't very serious about it until now. She said she wasn't really into having kids yet, and she just wanted to enjoy ourselves when we could. I didn't know that would mean something so differently to her. She made it clear that she isn't seeking any relationship with my friend. She told me that she just doesn't really imagine having a relationship with him, and that will be how it is for whoever knows how long. I know this sounds weird, but she told me this whole one-sided love is a bit of a permanent habit of hers that she can't get rid of, ever. I don't know if she seek therapy for this, because I was out of my mind at the time to even ask some of the questions I have, and I want her to answer. Divorce. I'm not sure how I'll be dealing with this. I really loved her. To sound even more crazy, I still do. No, I don't intend to continue this marriage. This marriage was meant to break from the very start now that I think about it. I'm just really tired at the moment to even seek an attorney, psychiatrist, or therapist. I know I'm also weird, but I want to talk to her first before doing things legally. There are still many things I want to ask her about, hear about her, and be mad about, but I just can't do any of it right now. My buddy probably doesn't know that she still has feelings. Who would have known that a person could have one-sided feelings towards someone for over a decade? I don't intend on talking about it to him until some of the things are cleared up on my side. Update. My wife, for one, is a good person, or at least she was. At least the person who I was with would be viewed as a good person from a social perspective. I'm not saying this to protect her. I'm giving you an idea of how people would view her in general if you knew her. She can't pass by homeless people without giving them anything out of her purse. She can't let a friend be sad and do nothing about it. She's full of emotions, empathy, sympathy, love, etc. She volunteers every weekend for seniors and homeless people. Many more can be listed, but you get my point. She was pretty attractive too. That's why I fell in love with her. She was charming, smart, and kind. A dream girl. I wouldn't have asked for anyone else. We were all friends, as I've mentioned, and when she showed interest in me, I also eventually grew feelings for her pretty quickly. Why would I hesitate? Like I said, she was my dream girl. For all I know, I was her first guy. She never was with anyone else that I know for sure. Her family was strict, and she lived with them until marriage, so I wouldn't say she really had a chance to get physical with anyone. So yes, I was her first. I wouldn't in a million years suspect that all these times were a lie. Well, she did a darn good job at keeping this secret of hers. I was devoted to making her happy. I would have done anything for her. I loved her to the core, every inch of her. I did everything I could to make her happy. That's why it hurts so much right now, being betrayed. Or was it really a betrayal if she never loved me in the first place? Because I sincerely believed her. I mean, how would anyone pretend to ask for a kiss, a hug, and affection to someone for over 10 years if they never even loved them? Would you really want to cuddle up with someone that you don't love? Would you really want to share the same bed with someone you never loved? Would you really want to hold someone's hand that you never truly loved? I mean, for over a decade. How can anyone be this good at acting? Yes, I'm probably in denial, and I probably will be for a long time, because apparently you can do all of that stuff without actually loving someone, which I still can't believe. I got up with my buddy last night and asked him what's new, drank a bit, and finally I brought this conversation up. It wasn't easy to bring it up. I mean, to put it in literal text, my wife married me because she loved you. He was shocked, of course. It's probably just as much as I was. He didn't know what to say for a long time. It seems like she never contacted him even after she left. With that, to my surprise, other than our small dinner gatherings together that did happen sometimes, she never really contacted him personally. To be honest, she didn't really join those dinner gatherings much either. I asked him, "Did my wife ever tell you she had feelings for you?" To that he mentioned, "A long time ago, yes. She did say she had feelings for me. But that was like more than a decade ago, long before you two were dating, which we were all young and dumb. We talked for a long time about a lot of things, mostly about our past, our school years, college life, etc. And now here I am, feeling guilt. I feel guilty to the point that it hurts my guts." He didn't ask to be involved in this messy story, but I decided it was a good idea to talk to him about it. I regret it. He said sorry, even though it was not his fault. I'm a terrible person for this. As for my wife, we're meeting up in 2 weeks. If you ask why 2 weeks, she left an email saying she's in another country because she also felt like she needed to go off to somewhere to put things together, and she'll return in 2 weeks. If you ask why I'm meeting up with her, she asked if it's okay with me. She wants to meet up for a talk, and I agreed to it. I have lots of things to ask her. I haven't really had proper sleep for weeks. I'm so tired. My husband is mad that I have a higher IQ, and he says that he's not attracted to me anymore. He came home one day and gave me a login to some IQ test, and I scored higher than him. First he was in disbelief, then a bit sulky. I thought the whole thing was stupid, and I never thought or experienced that I'm smarter, and I never understood the logic of these tests. Anyway, since then he has changed. He doesn't want to cuddle or kiss me or anything. Last Saturday, we attended a birthday party for my little nephew, and my husband spent the night chatting up my sister-in-law's sister, who's very pretty. When we got home, I just had it up to here with him and started crying because he ignored me for at least 3 weeks, and now he's flirting with other people. He denied everything. He denied being changed with me since the test, but I wasn't backing down this time. I told him that I wasn't stupid and that he stopped being affectionate since that day. He finally admitted that he was no longer attracted to me. I asked him if he still wasn't attracted to me and why. I haven't changed. I'm still me. He apologized and said that he would get his crap together and that he knows how silly this is. But he has been wary around me since. I still think that he's turned off by this. What can I do now? Update. We're taking a break. So I told my husband that I've had enough. He's obviously had a change of heart, and I'm not going to be there to witness him falling out of love with me. The mere thought is painful. He called me drama and said that while his reaction was bitter and stupid, I'm taking a huge leap in the wrong direction since he already acknowledged his mistake and he's working towards being better. I told him that wasn't true. He's still avoiding me like I'm a leper. I asked him to see his phone. He's been talking a bit too friendly to a coworker. It started immediately after this whole test thing, like he was determined to hurt me, or I don't know what he was trying to accomplish otherwise. In one of the texts, he complains that I was neglectful and full of myself. How ironic to pretend that I'm the neglectful one when he's not even kissed my cheek in over a month. I felt it was a matter of time before he would cheat on me. I'm not staying for that. I asked him to move out. This morning, he texted me that he loved me and that he was sorry. He didn't know what he was trying to prove to me or to himself, but that he loves me and finds me very attractive. I call BS, honestly. He's been so cold with me, flirting with everyone that looked his way, and now he's all loving and affectionate. He wants us to try therapy, and he suggested that he needed to work on his insecurities with a therapist too. We have a daughter together who's 8 months that we love more than anything, but I don't know. Why does it feel like it's over and that I don't trust him anymore? I feel like I know now what he's capable of doing when faced with adversity, and going through rough patches is inevitably in every marriage. I don't like his method of dealing with it. I'm too intelligent to put up with this. Those tests are often not that accurate, but this time I think OP really was way smarter than her husband. What was his endgame here? Shaking my head. I don't put much stock in IQ tests, but she really is smarter than him. My husband also found one of those IQ tests online and convinced me to take it. When I scored higher than him, he wouldn't shut up about it for weeks, but I was like, oh my God. Well, what would you prefer? Would you like a partner with a higher IQ than yourself or not? Please let us know. Obviously, we know that's what you like, Reddit boy. Your IQ's lower than the approval rate for the new background art we tried recently. Am I the jerk for refusing to go to my sister's child-free wedding despite not having kids? Background. I'm the youngest of 4 girls. My 2 older sisters, who are 32 and 30, both have kids. My third sister, who's 27, doesn't, and she's getting married at the end of the month. I, 23, also don't have kids, but my partner and I hope to someday in the future. Oldest sister lives overseas with her husband and so is mostly irrelevant in the situation. Her and sister 3 don't speak. Anyway, sister 3 is having a child-free wedding. She is, like, aggressively child-free. We really don't get along well. So basically our parents are old. I do love them, and they can no longer drive. I can't drive either, but my husband can, as can my older sister. She's a single mom though, and had no one to watch her kids. My husband and soon-to-be brother-in-law hate each other. They grew up together, and there's just lots of bad feelings there, so my husband wasn't going to the wedding. I was going to have him drop me off. In the end, last weekend, after months of anxiety, I said I would stay with the kids so my parents and sister could go. She will drive them and attend in my place. My sister lost it at that, then decided she would have someone else drive our parents and asked me to come. I told her no, my older sister wants to go. I'd rather her be there anyway, as if one of our parents falls or something, she knows what to do. Sister lost it and said that I was being selfish. This is where I may be the jerk. I then told her I didn't see the point in going to an event half the family would be missing from, referencing the kids. She said it shouldn't matter to me because I don't even have kids. I then said they were better company than her and point blank refused to attend her wedding. Even if the kids have a babysitter, which sister is now offering to pay for, I wouldn't go. She's so upset. I feel a little bad, but not much. My older sister says I'm in the right. Second sister says she feels really bad. Our parents aren't really acknowledging the situation. I think they just want to see their daughter get married. Am I the jerk? CEO didn't understand what my department did, apparently. Some backstory. I was a general troubleshooter for my company. My job involved a lot of traveling to different clients we support. My area of work is Ontario, Canada, and some of the nearby states in the US, New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, Pennsylvania. I did most of my traveling by car since my schedule can change quite quickly and flying can become very expensive. I had one colleague who is technically my subordinate, but we have a very good working relationship and would often handle calls independently of each other, only checking in by phone once a week and in person once a month when necessary. A little over a year ago, I get an email calling me to the head office in New York City for a meeting with the CEO and the board of directors regarding my job. I check with my colleague and he gets the same email. So we make our travel plans and meet in New York City the following week. We have dinner together the night before our meeting and can't figure out between us what the issue is about. It's rare to get summoned to head office and more rare for things to be so vague. When we go into the meeting the next day, we're informed that the company is dividing our department between the US and Canada, and there would be a new position to deal with the US clients and we were to restrict ourselves to Canada. Both my colleague and I were a little shocked at this since neither of us had ever heard that this was being discussed. I asked who the new person for the US was, and we then learned it was a new hire that the CEO had taken a special interest in. Trying to be of good spirit, I offered to train the new person. There are many realities of this job that are not in the job description. CEO accepted and then brought in the new hire. In walks a young lady who looks about 23 years old and wears an expression that she knows everything. She sits at the table and immediately makes it very clear that she wants nothing to do with us. We have the CEO, Bob, the new hire, Karen, and my colleague, Jim. Bob: Welcome, Karen. We've just informed OP and Jim about the change in structure, and they're willing to give you the support you need to get yourself started. Karen and Bob both look at me. Glad to have you aboard, Karen. I think both Jim and I have a lot of experience to share with you, and we're happy to do so. Perhaps it would be better in a separate meeting so we don't take the board's time. Karen: Thank you all. I have a lot of ideas about how I can streamline our department and new policies I can introduce that should save the company a lot of money and expenses. I'm very confused at this point. Karen is speaking as though she's my supervisor, and that is distinctly not what Bob spoke to us about. I can see some of the board members giving strange looks at this as well. Bob, perhaps I misunderstood the new roles here. Would you please clarify? Bob: Sure. Karen is the new head of your department, and both you and Jim will answer directly to her. Board member: That isn't what we discussed or approved as a board. We weren't fully convinced of dividing the department, but this is completely against what we discussed. Karen: What did you discuss then? Board member: That your department would be divided between the US and Canada. OP and Jim would remain north of the border, and you would run the US. Karen: That's not what I was told, but I can work with that, as long as these two stay out of my way, indicating me and Jim. Jim and I are both shocked and insulted to be spoken to in this manner. We're both very good at our jobs, and before today have never seen this woman in our lives. Bob: That settles it. OP, effective immediately, you and Jim have nothing to do with Karen. Do not interfere with her work at all. You are both to restrict yourselves to working within Canada only. With that, he ended the meeting and left the room with Karen close behind him. Jim and I sat there stunned for a moment, and some of the board members came up to us to express their shock and sympathies with us. I had enough presence of mind to ask if we could get a written directive of this change and was assured that we would. Sure enough, both Jim and I got emails with a new directive from Bob by the end of the day. So after sending an email to all of our US-based clients advising them of the change and giving them the contact information for Karen, Jim and I made our way back to Toronto and reorganized ourselves for working within Ontario only. This meant much less traveling for us, so it gave more room to breathe. Within a week, I was getting complaints from our US-based clients that Karen was not answering emails and missing appointments. I forwarded these emails to Karen and copied the entire board, including Bob. Another week later, I get a phone call from Karen, who sounds frantic but won't admit that she needs help. She makes pleasant conversation and then asks how I would handle a particular type of situation. I tell her I'm really not interested in discussing work, as that might be seen as interfering in her work. Later that evening, I get a call from Jim telling me he had the same conversation with Karen and handled it the same way. By the end of that month, I get a call from Bob asking if I'll take over the entire department again. I politely tell him no, since I don't want to interfere with Karen in her role. For the next 3 months, I'm getting emails and phone calls from US clients asking if they can have me back as their contact. This confirms an idea that had been in my head. Jim and I had actually grown our client base in Ontario since restricting ourselves here. So I had lunch with Jim one day and asked him if he wanted to go into business with me as partners, starting our own consulting firm. We couldn't provide everything our current company provided, but we could provide a high degree of professionalism for our specific field, and it seemed we had a ready-made client base. By the end of the lunch, he was on board, and we started the necessary steps to get ourselves set up. As soon as we were clear, we both submitted our resignations with explanations of why. The next time clients contacted us, we told them we no longer worked for the company. When they asked if we still worked in the field, we told them we had established our own firm and what services we offered. A month later, we had 60% of our US clients on board, and since the former company had no Canadian support at all, we had 80% of the Canadian clients. Within 2 months, we had 80% of the US and 90% of Canadian clients. In the years since that time, our new company has grown enough that we've hired 7 new consultants. Jim and I find ourselves doing more office work than road work and a lot of client courting. Our old company has had to stop offering the in-person troubleshooting, what our department did, and Bob was fired by the board. No idea what happened to Karen. Update. Because of interest expressed in the comments, I made a phone call to one of the board members I remained friendly with. Here are some answers to questions. How did Karen get the job? Apparently, Bob had set up a business school scholarship out of his own money, which had put something like 6 or 7 students through business school. Karen was the latest graduate, and Bob wanted to give her a start in the business world. Was Bob hooking up with Karen? No clear answer was given, but Bob's wife divorced him shortly after he was fired from the company. Make of that what you will. What happened to Karen? Apparently, she got a job as middle management in a financial services company. Hopefully, she can still build a life for herself and has learned some important lessons. What happened to Bob? Last I heard, he was a regional director for a large hotel chain. Hopefully, he also lands on his feet. Everyone deserves a chance to make a life for themselves. Some questioned why the board was there for this meeting. I honestly don't know, and neither did the board member I spoke with. It was one of their regularly scheduled meetings, and Bob added things to the agenda. Some questioned my use of non-compete, saying it's not nice. It's a normal reality in the business world. The oddity is that my old company did not have one. The non-compete I have my employees sign is not overly burdensome. It protects our intellectual property and professional contacts. It does not in any way restrict the employee's ability to work in the field. That said, Jim and I have both agreed that if an employee leaves us on good terms and reasonably asks to be released from the non-compete, we would oblige. Some inquired if we're still hiring. Unfortunately, we're not. We're taking a pause from expansion right now as Jim's wife is dealing with cancer. I don't want Jim to worry about the office while taking care of his wife, so we've decided to maintain our size, which I can do with minimal input from Jim until his wife is in remission and he has a chance to rest and return his attention to our company. Jim and I treat each other like family, so this is a natural step for us. Neighbor tries to flex, gets what he deserves. Spec home build with a $12 million budget and a 16-month schedule. Next door neighbor immediately qualifies as a complete jerk. Knows everybody, including the principals of the company I work for. At the very beginning of the work, he asks for a row of redwood trees to be planted as screening between the properties. Principal grants his request as a good neighbor gesture, $31,000. Every step of the project, he either stands out at the end of the driveway taking pictures or he's flying his drone over the lot. He starts asking questions about whether or not work in progress is covered under the permit. He confides that he has obtained a copy of the permit and a set of plans. One day, he asks us for a meeting to discuss the redwood trees. Yes, those trees. He comes over at the appointed time and introduces his wife's landscape architect. Famous guy apparently, and he tries pulling some muscle moves by trying to convince us that the redwood trees are stealing their water. They also don't fit his vision for the project that they're considering, which will be a total side and backyard makeover with walkways, stone walls, fountains, etc. He wants mature oak trees instead. Cut down and remove the redwoods at our expense and plant new oak trees, also at our expense, because, screening. We decline, which sends famous architect guy and his wife into a rage. They decide to move forward with their project anyway, and the major earth moving, concrete forming, irrigation, etc. are all getting placed. Mr. Drone Guy continues to make efforts to get the oak tree swapped in under threats that maybe some of the work we're doing isn't covered under the permit. Seems he also acted as the GC for his own remodel, so he must really know what he's talking about. He sends emails, registered letters from his lawyer, all in an effort to get us to swap out the trees. Finally, we are within sight of completing our project, and from the second floor, we can see that they have really transitioned their whole yard into little parklets with mature plantings and walkways and all the other stuff. It's impressive. So I call the town for a courtesy inspection prior to final, and the next day the inspector, an old friend whose father is also an old friend, stops by to tour the property for any red flags. I save the best for last, and we make it upstairs and make it to the best possible viewing point of the neighbor's magnificent landscape project, and my inspector friend casually but loudly says, "What's all that? I never saw a permit come through for all of that." And he bounds downstairs and heads back to the office, I'm guessing to pull files. Here comes the best part. Through property searches that we always perform as due diligence, we discovered the neighbor's side yard in its entirety is an 80-foot wide utility easement for the single largest underground water aqueduct for the entire region. Can't be built on. We kept mum. Now, because there's also a seasonal creek that crosses said easement, Fish and Game are notified of the work in progress. In addition, we now have the State Water Resources Board, along with the major water utility company inspections and enforcement department making inquiries along with the town building department. No permit application was ever submitted for any of the work that Mr. Drone Guy had done. Oof. Our property sold, and during some modifications for the new owner, we watched with subdued glee as every stick and stone was removed from the offending area and was to be left in a natural state for eternity. Major fines were also levied. Am I the jerk for always turning down hangouts with my friends when they ask to bring their kids? I have a friend group of 7 women from uni. I'm the only one that's child-free, but 1 is childless, 2 are pregnant with their first, and 3 have kids. We as a group rarely meet up. I've seen all of them maybe twice in the last year, and we all live in the same city. Every time someone asks to meet up and we finally find a date everyone is available, one of the moms always asks if they can bring their kid or their kids. It's usually one of 2 moms, as the third actually wants to have a kid-free evening. And before anyone else can answer, the other moms say yes. All 3 moms have husbands who can watch their kids. Most of them also have both sets of grandparents who are involved. But somehow, they never manage to find someone who can babysit, as they call it. So at this point, I've stopped answering until they've set a time and place, someone has asked about kids, and I say I can't make it. I hang out with them one-on-one or in smaller groups instead. Well, a few days ago, we agreed to finally meet up. No one had asked about kids yet, and we were having a barbecue with wine night. Well, who shows up with their 8-year-old? Yep, one of the moms. I clearly didn't hide my annoyance, and one of the girls asked me why. I just waved it off, and 30 minutes later I excused myself and left. Said I didn't feel well. In those 30 minutes, we hadn't had any adult talk. We were just entertaining their kid. I'd rather go home than do this for another 3 to 4 hours. After I left, I think they realized this was a pattern, and I got a text from most of the girls in the group. Some calling me a jerk, others just saying they were annoyed with me for leaving, while the third mom had my back and asked to meet up later that week to have a proper wine night. I don't dislike kids at all. I work with them every day, and I don't want to spend my time off relaxing with friends having to entertain other people's kids again. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Wine night with friends from college pretty much definitely means no kids. No jerks here. It sounds like your friend circle is naturally fracturing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's quite natural for young parents to want to socialize with their kids in tow when their friendship circle consists of other parents in the same situation. It's also a nice way for their kids to get friends. Not the jerk, but you're being passive-aggressive. I understand not wanting to be around kids in your free time, but you need to establish early on in the planning process that it's just a gal's night or something to that effect. You can't assume the others will automatically think of or want to arrange childcare when one of you suggests hanging out and then get mad when they don't. Am I the jerk for ignoring my friend's phone calls and telling her to buzz off? I, 37 male, have been friends with Lucy, 38 female, for about 30 years. Lucy always calls me when she has a problem, as we've been friends for so long and I've always been there for her. This can be something as small as editing her resume or something as big as needing a loan to make rent. Unfortunately, Lucy has only one mode, emergency. So whether it's a crisis or a simple problem, she always approaches it in emergency mode. The other day, I was in the middle of taking a timed assessment for work on my phone. I was about 5 minutes into it when Lucy called me. As I was in the middle of the assessment, I declined the call and put her on voicemail. As soon as I did this, she called back. I once again declined the call and put her on voicemail. She called back a third time and I did the same thing. Keeping in mind, every time she did this, it interrupted my assessment. The clock kept running and the screen filled with her phone call taking away the question. She texted me, which popped up on my screen. 911, call me. I responded, busy, call you in 20. She replied, please, it's an emergency. I closed the text and continued my assessment. She then started calling again. I put 5 calls in a row on voicemail. I was behind on my assessment, so I tried to power through, but stress was getting to me. Lucy texted me again. Need you now. I lost it and texted back, buzz off. In 30 years, neither of us has ever said that to each other, but in that moment, I just wanted her to leave me alone. She didn't respond, but stopped calling. When I finished my assessment, I called her back, and she threw me to voicemail. I texted her and said I was done and I could talk now. She replied, "It's fine, I took care of it." I later learned that her car had broken down and she needed a ride to work so she wouldn't miss her shift. She wound up calling her father, she was late for work, and got a written warning. She's been very cool to me, and I feel very badly that I've hurt her. I've apologized for what I said, and she just says, "It's fine," without any further comment. I'm beginning to doubt if my reaction was justified and feel horrible for damaging our friendship. Am I the jerk for how I reacted and not helping my friend when she was in need? Not the jerk. It wasn't a 911, it was an inconvenience. It sounds like a toxic relationship in which she just uses you. Move on, dude. She's not a friend. Not the jerk. She failed to consider that you could possibly be doing something that cannot be interrupted because she's the main character. And now, having learned that she was interrupting you in the middle of something critical, her response is not to apologize, but to act as though you were in the wrong for not stopping whatever you're doing, anything, because she's the priority? That's messed up. This person is not a friend. She considers you a servant. Not the jerk. I got irritated just reading this. She must be absurdly entitled if she thinks she can simply demand that you drop what you're doing, whatever it is, the moment she calls. Karen neighbor tries to steal my package. Huge mistake. So I had been waiting for my package that cost $700, was waiting for it like a hawk. I got a notification that the package was about 2 stops away, so I started watching live stream of my security camera waiting for the guy to deliver it. Amazon guy came and put a small envelope inside my mailbox, and I saw him take my big box to the neighbor across the street, and I saw that he rang the doorbell. The neighbor came out and they took it in. First, I thought, okay, maybe it's not mine. So I checked my orders and it said, delivered, handed directly to resident. That's when I knew it was in fact my package. I decided to wait about 30 minutes to give the neighbor a chance to bring it back, to just drop it off at my doorstep. But when I saw that she was not returning my package, I got my coat on and went straight to their house, rang the doorbell and said, "Hi, I'm your neighbor from across the street. I saw that Amazon dropped off my package to your house, and it looks like they dropped off yours at mine." The woman immediately said, "Oh, I was confused. I thought my husband had ordered it." It was obvious she had every intention to keep it. The package came in 3 boxes, a really big one, another one sealed inside of it, and then another box, the actual item, inside of that second box. To my surprise, she had already opened the boxes. I don't believe for 1 second that she was confused. The label had my name and address right next to the part where she had to pull off the tape to open the big box. So then, she just wanted to give me the box of the actual item, which thankfully was still sealed. I guess she didn't open that one because she could see what it was and was probably gonna wait to see if anyone would claim it. And I said, no, I'm gonna need the other 2 boxes as well in case I need to return it. I watched her struggling to put all the boxes back into the big box, and then she gave it to me. I gave her her small envelope that Amazon dropped off at my house, untampered and sealed, and said thank you, which I regret saying because not one time did she say sorry or thank you. I bet she's done this before and just keeps packages that aren't hers. But the audacity to receive the package and open it. Had she lied and said she didn't receive it, I would have shown her the security footage, but I gave her no option to say that she didn't receive it. Honestly, if she had opened it by mistake and then brought it back to me apologizing for opening the package because she assumed it was hers, I would have been grateful and said not to worry and thanked her for bringing it back. I gave her the chance and the time to bring it back, but she did not. Now I refer to that house as the House of Thieves. I'd also report the delivery driver that claimed it was delivered and handed directly to resident, since it clearly wasn't. OP. Yeah, I already contacted Amazon. Do you have an HOA you can report your neighbor to? There's no telling how many other packages she's stolen like this. I can't believe the audacity of some people. Who in the right mind would just keep a package that obviously isn't for them? The driver himself really messed up too, and I hope you report him to Amazon. Every time I've reported a driver for being an idiot, I usually don't see them delivering anymore after that, so I'm thinking they get replaced once they get a complaint. I don't know where they find these people, to be honest. They deserve the jump scare they get from my fake rattlesnake that I leave by the front door. Oh, that is so not cool. Amazon drivers are the worst. Like, how hard is it to check the address before you drop off a package? I definitely report them to the higher-ups and be sure to follow up on it. I had a friend that delivered for Amazon, and he said that drivers typically suffer no consequences for their complaints unless you reach out to corporate directly, which will usually result in them getting fired. Call me crazy, but what if she just didn't check the label? Unless I'm expecting a package, I just assume whatever arrives is for my wife, so I leave it in the kitchen somewhere that she will see it. I think you've been reading too many of these Reddit stories, and you might be assuming your neighbors are out to get you. Reddit, the place where being the voice of reason gets you downvoted to heck. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his neighbor? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for printing out a map of the grocery store for my dad? I, 18 female, am the only daughter in a family of 4 boys, 15, 13, 10, and 8. Our dad is pretty much a single parent since he and our mom divorced when the boys were younger, and mom lives out of the country with her husband. It's more or less become my job to be the mother 2.0, which is fine, I guess. I'm doing college online, so it's not like I wouldn't be home to do stuff anyway. One of my unofficial jobs is to help my dad grocery shop. I used to go with him to do it, and I would make the list myself, and I'd just grab whatever we needed. But now that I drive the boys around for their extracurriculars, and I'm busy with school or chores when I'm not helping them, I really don't have the time. I just started writing the list and giving it to my dad so he could go out and get what we needed. Every single time this man has gone to the grocery store by himself, he's either completely forgotten about the list, remembered the list, then lost it, remembered the list but ignored it, or somehow could not find more than half of the things on it. It's hard to cook an actual dinner when literally half of what he ends up bringing home is frozen meals and pasta sauce, but no pasta. I've brought it up to him, but Dad keeps saying that if I would just make time to go with him, or if I went on my own, it would probably be easier to get what we needed. I said that we could switch jobs, so he takes the boys to their things and I get groceries, but he said he doesn't know their schedules and he wouldn't want to mess it up for them. He said he'd go grocery shopping today and asked me to go with him, but I was working on some stuff for my finals before I had to drive the 10-year-old and the 8-year-old to their practices, so I couldn't go. I started making the list like I usually do, but because I didn't want to end up with only half of what I had put on there, I went and printed the layout of the grocery store. I even went online and found out which aisle each product was supposed to be on, and I color-coded the stuff he needed to get. I left it for him on the table and then went to take the boys. While I was doing schoolwork during their practice, my dad called me, asking why I felt the need to color-code a map for him like he was a toddler in need of specific instruction. I replied saying that I only thought the map might make it easier for him to find the things I put on the list, since I also made sure that everything was in stock online. It's been hours since we've gotten back home, and he's very clearly upset with me, but he did get the stuff on the list this time. I don't know. I think maybe I just made him feel like an idiot, and that's why he's upset. Was the map thing a little too much? Not the jerk. Your dad is asking too much of you, and he's avoiding his responsibility as the parent. He could and should learn their schedules. He just doesn't want to. You should have a serious talk with him about how he either steps up or he hires help. Can't justify paying me? No problem. Just before lockdown, I worked for a small telecom company that did contract work for a national cell carrier. We'll call them Crap Inc. and Big Wireless. I was hired on as a full-time employee for Crab Inc. along with every other technician, and we were not contractors. Important later. I was good at my job. I've been in the field for over 20 years, so I knew my stuff, and most problems were easy enough to troubleshoot and repair. But sometimes we needed a second tech to help out with bigger issues, which is understandable in our field. Crab Inc. was shady, unbeknownst to us at the bottom of the ladder, but we were about to find out. About 4 months in, new orders came down the chain that from henceforth, we were to do double trips on every ticket. This meant we had to drive out with no parts, assess a problem, then make a return trip with parts to fix it. 2 trips equals double pay for the company. Even on simple things like pushing a reset button. 2 trips, no excuses. Then they began cutting our hours, tracking our every move, and redoing our timesheets after submitting it, with the excuse of, employees are stealing time and we're going to prove it. The latest rule was a good one. All employees must work at least 2 tickets each day in order to be considered for a full 8 hours of pay and 40 hours per week. No ticket, no pay. With this, they began holding mandatory bi-weekly meetings to go over every minute of our trips, overlaying GPS data, timestamps, travel distance, etc. They docked pay for gas station stops, bathroom breaks, phone calls, everything. They even tried to not pay us for these very meetings because our trucks were off and couldn't prove we were working. Buddy, I'm not a contractor. I'm a full-time employee. Enter glorious malicious compliance. See, the thing is, I don't take too kindly to people stealing from my paycheck and gaslighting me about it. And apparently, the other employees felt the same way. Give me one solid night of prep work and I'll beat you at your own game. The next weekend, I held a meeting of my own with the techs, and after some explanation, we all decided that the company was absolutely right. 2 trips, 2 tickets, every minute accounted for, and the GPS data to prove it. Monday morning, meeting rolls around, and every tech drove to the nearest site to have our mandatory 2-hour meeting. The trucks aren't at home and running the entire time. Our daily tickets come in, and we drive directly to the site, idle for 2 hours while we check out the problem, then do our second trip to get the parts, as instructed, and spend 2 hours fixing it, drive time not included. A second daily ticket comes in, and what's this? I can't seem to figure out the problem. I guess I'll have to call another tech who only had 1 ticket to help me. Glad he was free. Let's ponder this problem for 2 hours while wasting fuel. Now we need parts. Looks like we both have to go get them. Return trip complete. Another 2 hours to fix the problem. Let's see how we did. First ticket, 2 hours assessment plus 1 hour travel time, GPS logged. 2 hour return trip plus 1 hour travel time, GPS logged. Second ticket, same thing, all logged. Hey boss, Crab Inc. owes every tech 64 hours of work this week. Let's check the math and GPS logs just to be sure. Oh, and for some reason, the fuel expenses went up. But at least we have the GPS data you need for our extremely accurate PowerPoint presentation. Update per request. Crab Inc. folded from embezzlement, misappropriation of lockdown funds, and sued by Big Wireless for 2 trips, no excuse, among other things. There were a few jail sentences handed out. Not sure if anyone got a piece of that pie. Am I the jerk for giving my future mother-in-law an ultimatum around paying for our wedding venue? I, Victoria, 32, female, am marrying Alex, 48, male, in 2024. We live on the East Coast, but are both from the southern United States, and Alex's family is essentially royalty in their hometown. His parents have a very visible local business, sponsor kids' sports teams, tithe heavily in church, and have their own jingle in commercials. Alex's mother, Frida, decided right away that I'm a gold digger because I come from a tiny town that she refers to as a patch of dirt in the middle of nowhere, and my government salary, which is public record, is less than half of Alex's, though we're both government attorneys. She constantly goes between making digs about my bland wardrobe to making a big deal out of buying me things like coffee and implying that I should be grateful that she and his father Fred are so generous and can do things like host us over the holidays. At Thanksgiving, Alex and I said that we were close to finding a venue, but the one we were looking at had quoted us $25,000, which we didn't want to pay. Not because we didn't have the money, but because it was just out of our stated budget. Frida immediately said that of course Alex wouldn't want to pay that since he'd be paying all by himself, and made a show of telling us that she and Fred would pay for the wedding. At the same time, they said that they expected us to get a prenup because Alex needed to protect himself and his family in case anything happened. We were going to do one anyway, so we shrugged and agreed. Frida immediately began telling everyone in town that she and Fred were paying for the whole wedding, and people kept coming up to me with thinly disguised sympathy to say how nice it must be to have a dream wedding due to Frida's generosity. Alex and I engaged counsel and have been passing our prenup between ourselves and our lawyers. Frida pestered Alex about it so much that he finally told her the holdup is with my counsel because my assets are more complicated to deal with than his. Even though he's told her before that I'm not a gold digger and didn't need his money, it apparently didn't sink in until now. She looked up everything from my property records to salary scales at my old big law firm and apparently realized that I'm worth nearly as much as she and Fred are. When she confronted me, I told her that she could either pay for the venue and I would continue to publicly agree with everyone that she was being generous to her new daughter-in-law, or that she could back out. We had changed venues, and then I'd explain to everyone that she thought I had too much money. She hates both of these options, since one involves losing money, she thought she could lord over me, and the other involves losing face, since she told everyone in town I don't have any money and I'm after Alex's. So she ran off to bed with a migraine. Alex thinks I'm being too harsh on her, but I'm not so sure. Not the jerk, but you have to seriously consider marrying into a family like this. What you need to find out is where Alex stands with his parents and what his values are versus theirs. Is he a mama's boy that lets his mom make all the decisions for him, and he defers all decisions to her and his father? If he does, then you really need to think twice about marrying him. He needs to cut the apron strings and back you as his wife, future wife. You basically need to know that he will have your back and will stand up for you, and even to the point where he will limit contact with his parents if they manipulate and gaslight. What do you think is going to happen when you have kids? Is grandma deciding how to bring up your own kids? Does Alex have any siblings with kids? What's their relationship with his parents? Have you spent time with them to get an idea of how controlling everyone is? Or do the kids' parents decide how they want to parent their kids? Has Alex been married before or had a long-term relationship? Does he have any kids? He's not old, but he's not young either. Does he want any? Do you? The ultimatum you gave your mother-in-law is neither here nor there. It's a lot of money, but may not be a lot if you're rich. It's the marriage that's important. If mother-in-law wants to plan your wedding as though it was hers, perhaps having an earlier small wedding in a location that's important to you is something worth considering, even eloping. You don't want someone else taking over. Even if you win against your mother-in-law when it comes to wedding decisions, can you be so sure that she won't try and sabotage it? Or that she'll wear black and a dour demeanor when making everyone around her miserable on your wedding day? This should take about 2 years. I work as a compliance officer at a company that needs to prove compliance to a government body and a certifying body. Our processes are designed in order to create that evidence. When I joined the company, I quickly noticed that the product development teams were not going by the process and were not documenting and generating the required evidence. I went to talk to their manager about it, and he told me we are very busy and we will get to it when we can. I explained to him that this project has been going on for 2 years already and will be done in 14 months. You cannot retroactively go back in time and try to create 2 years worth of evidence. He replied, "Your stuff is not real issues, and I'm only concerned if there is a problem with the product." I explained to him that without this evidence, we cannot certify the product and put it on the market. He smirked and said, "That's your problem, now isn't it? Do your worst." I admit a part of me wanted to resign after that conversation to avoid being associated with a potentially bad product or a failure to launch. Then it hit me. As part of the process, we should raise non-compliances as issues in the system. So I went to work. I reviewed all of their work and evidence, and anything that was wrong or missing, I logged an issue against. I raised nearly 2,000 issues and have been reporting them to the VP and president of the company. He came screaming to me and threatened if I don't stop and put them as tasks for me to complete instead of issues, he will have me fired. I refused. A week later, we were having a meeting with my boss, his boss, the VP, and the president. He and his boss went on a rant about how I was trying to destroy the project and make us miss our timelines, and how I should take ownership of making us compliant. I replied, "I'm just following the processes and regulations, but if you really want me to change these issues to tasks, I don't mind, but we need to do it the right way." I went on to explain that they need to submit the change request, which will need to be reviewed and approved by a panel. Of course, their request will drive changes to our processes, so it will need to go to the governance board. These changes will go against regulations, so we will need to file for an exemption before we implement them. Assuming we receive it, we will have to update and release all our processes again, which we do only in July. This meeting happened in August. After that, I can go change all of the issues to tasks. Since I'm not working on the product, I'll need members of their teams to be freed up over 2 years so I can document the work they failed to document. This whole thing should take about 2 years. Until then, I would have to hold them to the current process, assuming, of course, we receive the exemption. My boss, the VP, and president were all chuckling as the other guys' faces turned red in anger. They started to scream at me, but the president stopped them and ordered them to comply, and he will personally check it happened. Since they were riding their teams hard and committed to aggressive timelines, the team ignored the documentation still. They both got fired and replaced, and the president negotiated different timelines with the customer and paid for the late fees. I don't care if you have a kid at home. Mine needs it more. First, a little backstory. My wife, female 32, and I, male 36, had our first kid this year. A heck of a year for a kid that needs to have formula, let alone that formula having to be sensitive. We're always searching everywhere near us for formula every time that we start running low, and usually we'll try to grab 2 of the largest containers we can get, making sure to keep within the store's guidelines on how many they will let customers have. I want to feed my kid, but I don't want to take from others who may need it also. So that way we can make sure that we always have food for him. Which leads me to the beginning of the week. We were searching again because our stores were running low, and we would need more before the middle of the week. Searches for generic sensitive were leading us to maybe having to take a trip out of state just so that we can feed our son. We checked one more time through the Walmart app, and in one of the locations in our town, they had the formula. I rushed over to the store hoping that they had not sold out. I got there, and luckily they had it. I grabbed 2 and called my wife to see if she wanted me to get more. They had 10 in total, and the store had a limit of 6. She told me to only get 2 because she didn't want to have others do without. So I hung up and put them into my cart. When I did, I heard the most shrill, "What do you think you're doing?" I turn around and I see a woman who looks older than me. I could be wrong. I've always been kind of crap at guessing ages. She says to give the formula to her because she needed it for her kid and I must be reselling it. I looked at her and nervous laugh a little and say, "No, I have a son and he needs this formula." She just replied to me that she doesn't give a hoot and that her baby needs it more. I look at her and say, "No, I'm taking this because my son needs it. There are 8 more on the shelf and the limit is 6 to be fair to others." She's having none of it, pushing to my cart to take my son's food. I made sure to protect it and made sure to move the cart in a way that she couldn't act like I was being aggressive and trying to get her. I'm a bigger guy, and some would call me scary and intimidating because I have a resting jerk face. This set her off, and she started screaming that I was stealing from her and her kid, that I wanted her kid to starve because I was just reselling the formula. I walked away before I would lose my cool, and she started following me through the store, trying to get people to force me to give her the formula that she needed so badly. She finally found a manager and started trying to keep me there. I simply said that I am within the limit, and while she was focused on them, I booked it. She must have looked around and couldn't find me because she started screaming, and I heard how loud she was. While people were heading towards her, I calmly, but with a little faster pace, made my way to the checkout and paid. With my son's food, I got in my car and laid low for a few seconds, not knowing if she found me and kept following. As I was pulling out of my spot in my rearview mirror, I saw her running out of the front door, looking wildly to see if I was still there. I pulled out of there while calling my wife to tell her all about this, and it looked like she was seething. All I have to say is, thank God that the Walmart is on the opposite side of town. I do kind of feel a little bad, because in the back of my mind, I have the thoughts of, what if they really needed it? But I have to feed my son. It's my responsibility as a parent. I got you a souvenir. Oh yeah? Well, I got you fired from the post office. Background. Sit back and enjoy a story about some revenge I achieved at the U.S. Postal Service back in the 1990s that cost a bullying full-time carrier his union job. In summer of 1991, I found a summer job as a casual carrier for the U.S. Post Office. They used to hire summer temps to cover for all the full-time carriers who mostly took their vacations in the summer. The USPS has rules that things have to be delivered within certain time windows. People could get fired if they took too long to do tasks. Carriers were both openly and secretly monitored and timed on tasks, and we had the first computerized time system I ever saw. They would be secretly followed a few times per year to be sure they were working hard the entire time they were outside the post office. The post office building even had secret back hallways, passive sound monitoring, and hidden raised viewing areas where they could see the sorting floor unobserved. Cameras and microphones were really expensive back then, so this was all done using tricky architecture and the eyes and ears of the postal inspectors. We were supposed to walk over and punch in and out of tasks so that they could track productivity to the second. People walking a delivery route were expected to do it fast, and better routes went to faster carriers. Slow carriers got mercilessly hassled to be faster and were disciplined for slowness. Pre-internet, there used to be a huge volume of mail that got shuffled around the country every day. Quantities of mail that you would find hard to believe compared to what we see now. I was a broke college student home for the summer and was willing to work any hours they gave me, so the supervisors liked me. I was also very friendly with most of the full-time carriers because I was a good worker and didn't rock the boat. Also, the other reasons that you'll see below. I'm a fairly big guy, 6'5" or 195 centimeters, about 210 pounds back then, and I could carry a lot of weight, so that also made management happy. I was also in my early 20s with long legs, so I could move fast carrying a lot of weight. Sorting mail back then was labor intensive and took a lot of time to learn. I had a regular route that I would deliver in the afternoons that was sorted by a regular. I would usually do oddball delivery stuff in the mornings, help move heavy things around, do special deliveries, etc. I would also deliver for full-time carriers that went on vacation or whose T6 was on vacation. Side note, mail delivery is 6 times per week, but full-time carriers only work 5 days per week. The T6 is a full-time carrier who did the 6th day for 5 routes. That way, it worked out that everyone only worked 5 days per week. At the time, a lot of retail catalogs were mailed to houses, a lot of them. Some were substantially bigger than current magazines. We also delivered magazines, ads, packages, and samples. A lot of companies would mail free samples of products like laundry detergent, shampoo, and other liquids to be delivered to every house on the route. These were the bane of the carrier's existence because they were bulky and heavy. This slows you down and is physically taxing. Usually, carriers would divide the very heavy stuff up and deliver it throughout the week. On to the revenge. I was assigned to do the T6 work for Dave, name changed, for a few months. Oh, Dave. Picture a failed phys ed teacher in his 40s, bad mustache, around 5'7", wore knockoff sunglasses like Magnum PIs, and had an opinion about everything. Dave learns he has me as his T6 and decides he will leave all of the heavy stuff for me. So once a week, I got confronted with the entire week's worth of heavy mail for this jerk's route. I confronted him about it, and he basically laughed and said there was nothing I could do about it. The other full-time carriers didn't like Dave much, but I was a temp, and he was there permanently, so I was encouraged to just suck it up. I went to our boss and escalated to our postmaster, but was told that he was full-time and I was a temp, so I just had to deal with it. If the mail needed to be delivered that day to meet the deadline, I had to make it happen. The postmaster's exact words were, "Just deliver every piece of mail for the route as fast as you can, and don't worry about the time it takes or anything else. You're making huge overtime on this route." They did talk to Dave, and the most egregious stuff stopped, but I was still doing most of the hard work on this route. I mentioned earlier that everyone was always on the clock and tracked. In my first week, some of the nicer people took me aside at the beginning of the summer and made it clear to me that I was not to move quickly when delivering full-time carriers' routes because it could make them look bad and cause trouble for them. As a temp, I should always take longer than the full-time carriers because 1, my job was limited and the USPS did not really track temps closely. 2, I had 0 experience, so everything should take me longer. 3, this was a union shop, and they would hate to have to kick my butt for messing up their jobs. And 4, most of these people were awesome, and I wanted to be a team player. So I was incentivized to move slowly and not make the full-time people look bad. Side note, I am very pro-union and pro-labor, so this is not intended to knock unions, but the context is needed. I decided to wreck Dave's job since he was such a bullying little tool. I requisitioned 2 additional mail carrier bags. These are the over-the-shoulder satchels you see all the time. I was asked why, and I specifically told them it was to be able to carry all of the heavy items on Dave's route without having to keep going back to my Jeep to reload along the way. The postmaster personally approved it. After doing Dave's route 1 to 3 times per week, he called in sick a lot too. For a few weeks, I knew it very well and was staying on top of the heavy stuff. Once I was comfortable with the route, I started running it. I would literally load up 3 mail bags for each segment of the route and jog or run his entire route. Dave's route took him about 4.5 hours per day to walk. This was probably accurate for him, and he had been on the route for several years. I would finish it in 3 hours or less, every day, rain or shine, no matter how many magazines, samples, or packages were waiting. No one really noticed I was coming back so quickly and punching back out of delivering his route when I was only doing it a few times per week. I would come back, pick up the other work, and get that done. The fun started when Dave took a 2-week vacation and I handled his route 6 days per week. Since I was doing the work right, there was never a backlog of heavy items landing on me once per week. This made it even easier to jog or run his route as I was back to using one mail bag and fast walking/jogging was enough to get it done quickly. I frequently got it done in under 3 hours and never took longer than about 3.5 hours. My personal best was under 2.5 hours. I got pulled aside by my supervisor and the postmaster after the first week. They asked me about my timekeeping practices, and I confirmed that I was doing things correctly. I would punch into his route on departure, keep the appropriate logs, and punch back in when I got back. The postmaster then asked me about Dave's route. I played completely dumb. He noted that I complained about the mail volume several weeks ago and that I used to take 6 or 7 or more hours to get it delivered. I explained that I was spreading the heavier deliveries out over the whole week, and that had really made a difference. He asked me if I was really delivering all the mail and whether I was hiding or throwing away mail, a serious problem if true. I got very offended and told him I delivered every piece of mail for the route every day. Then I dropped the bomb. I told him I was having trouble understanding why this route was budgeted 4.5 hours to deliver when it clearly could be done much faster than that. I pointed out that it was a lot of dense multifamily housing, which means less walking. I told him lots of people on the route seemed surprised that I did not want a soda pop or to sit down and talk for a minute like Dave always did with them. Pure lies. All in my innocent, "Gosh, I want to help the USPS" voice. I told the postmaster that I was delivering all the mail as fast as I could and not worrying about anything else. I jogged the route again for the next 6 days and kept getting it done in much less time than Dave. Dave did not know about any of this. He made a point of finding me on his first day back to ask how I enjoyed doing all the hard work for him while he was vacationing. I told him I'd learned a lesson about how to treat your coworkers. He laughed at me and went back to sorting mail. He came back a few minutes later and said he got me a souvenir. He then pulled his long finger out of his pocket. Classic Dave. That was my last week at the USPS, and I headed back to college. I kept in touch with some of my friends I had made there, and one of them was very happy to tell me that Dave was fired about 2 months after I left. Due to the massive discrepancy in how long it took me and him to deliver the route, the higher-ups audited his route and discovered that he actually was lollygagging, taking unauthorized breaks, and apparently having an affair with a woman on his route, all on the clock. I, on the other hand, was in great physical shape after all that running and had pockets full of cash for that semester. His regular T6 also got most of the heavy stuff dumped on her, so she didn't get into any trouble for her delivery times because she was swamped with heavy mail on her day. She actually bid for and got the route full-time when Dave was shown the door. I have more stories of my glorious summer at the USPS, but crushing Dave is one of the high points. Karen ruins my professional cookware. The problem started when my girlfriend moved in about 2 years ago. I'm a former professional chef with a great passion for food. Over the years, I've gotten myself a lot of kitchen equipment that's quite expensive. If it breaks, I won't be able to replace it for at least a couple of months, that I take care of as if it's my little babies. I have knives, pots, and pans that I've kept in pristine condition despite using some of them a lot for 10 years or more. I also have a bunch of cheap, low-quality equipment in my kitchen that I call my crap pans. When she moved in, she asked me about them and why I don't just throw them away, and I jokingly told her that I keep them in case I have people with me that I don't trust in my kitchen. Sometime after she moved in with me, I started noticing scratches in my non-stick pans, dents in my knife edges, and deformations in my pots. I started observing my girlfriend when she was cooking and saw her cutting stuff with one of my Japanese chef knives directly on top of the stainless steel counter, and I told her right away to use a cutting board. I've seen that when she's done with a pan, she puts it under running water to cool it down. She uses dishwashing soap in my cast iron pans, and the list goes on. I've told her multiple times how to take care of the equipment and what not to do, and pretty much every time I correct her, she gets annoyed. So last week I came home, and to my horror, I saw my 5-liter cast iron pot filled up with water that had dishwasher soap in it. It's one of my favorite pots that I've seasoned over the course of 15 years. I snapped and told my girlfriend that she's not allowed to use my expensive equipment anymore and showed her the crap pans, and I told her that those are the ones she's gonna have to use in the future. She thought I overreacted, but I refused to budge. I'm getting tired of resharpening knives every other day and having to throw out pans that I've inherited from generations back because they got deformed or rusted beyond restoration. She reminded me of how I said the crap pans were for people that I don't trust and questioned whether I trust her or not, which I do, just not with my kitchen equipment. So please enlighten me. Am I the jerk for banning my girlfriend from using my kitchen equipment? I'm gonna say not the jerk. I'm the same as you. I am a one-woman army in the kitchen, and I have some expensive knives and equipment that I've been gifted over the years. I learned how to take good care of them all. I do 99% of the cooking in my house, and my husband used to also accidentally mess up my stuff when he did. I told him to either do the right things to clean them or to just leave it if he forgets how to use it and I'll take care of it. You explained how to properly clean and care for your stuff, and she isn't doing it. And on top of that, she's getting visibly annoyed when you remind her. She doesn't care about the stuff that you clearly do. Plus, it's not like you gave her no alternative. There are pots and pans and knives that she can still use. I think it's fine to have stuff that's just your own, for whatever reasons you want to have them. In this case, she's not respecting your stuff, so you get to have your own, and she has hers. Well, what do you think? Should OP let his girlfriend use his cookware or not? Please let us know. If Reddit boy scratched my Teflon, he'd need a new head. Am I the jerk for making my boyfriend do all of the chores? I, 30 female, run a small online business from home. November and December are my busiest times of the year when I make a lot of money that allows me to work less during the year. I've been doing this since I was 25, so I've got a decent idea of what I can and cannot do. And focusing on work only for 1 to 2 months is a sacrifice I'm willing to make for their chill rest of the year. This year, I've moved in with my boyfriend, male 35. Well, technically, he moved in with me because I own the house, so it was a no-brainer for him to move in with me. We split chores half and half. He works full-time, 37.5 hours a week. When he moved in, I had a talk with him, letting him know that I can't do any chores in November or December, and asked if he could pick up the slack because I'm physically unable to do any chores, as I can be working anywhere between 12 to 18 hours a day. I take a full January off to decompress. He said he doubted I worked that much, but we would see. I asked again in September and October to make sure that he was aware that I won't be doing anything. I meal prepped in advance, and I felt he kind of dismissed me. Mid-November, we had an argument about my chores not being done, and I reminded him of what I told him. He said that he thought I wasn't being serious and told me there's no way he'd do 100% of the chores because he's working too. I said fine, don't do my chores. They can wait until I have time. That's how I was when I lived alone, no problem. I don't make much mess anyway. He wasn't happy, but dropped it. We haven't seen each other much because I've been working so much, but he's been more and more upset and blew up at me today regarding the chores. He said I had to have a better work-life balance and to grow up because the house was a mess. I told him if it was a mess, it was his fault because I barely leave my office. He called me a lazy jerk. I told him I didn't have time for arguing and I went back to working. He stood in front of my locked office door shouting how he couldn't believe I was being serious about not doing chores and it was a jerk move to leave it all up to him. He thinks I'm a major jerk for basically disappearing for 2 months and following through with not doing chores. Am I really the jerk for saying I won't do chores and following through with it? Not the jerk. Someone who called me a lazy jerk in my house wouldn't be living in it much longer. He called you a lazy jerk? That kind of disrespect and rudeness in a relationship would not fly with me, and he'd be out. Not the jerk. Wow, your boyfriend is showing his true colors. Believe him. I know that right now you don't have time to rearrange your life, but once January comes around, you should give yourself the gift of losing the deadbeat boyfriend. For what it's worth, I'm married, and both me and my husband have gone through times where we had to pick up the slack for each other for whatever reason. And it's not always a work reason. There could be health issues, the birth of a child, travel, and a billion other things that come up. Your boyfriend is showing you that he will throw a fit and call you names whenever he needs to support you. This is bad, really bad. It should be a deal breaker. Everyone sucks here. You're a grown woman and can clean after yourself. Many people work crazy hours, and not just during 2 months of the year, but they keep their shared living spaces clean. Your boyfriend escalated it by calling you names, and he could have helped out more, especially knowing that you're stressed. I think you need to both sit down and have a conversation, or you may not be happy in a relationship in a month. The answers on here are funny. If the situation were switched and a man said this to his wife, everyone would be saying he is a jerk because she works too and chores should be shared. It should be the same in this other direction as well. She can take an hour or two and do chores. I work for an accounting firm and quite frequently work 14 to 16-hour days, not including commute, and I still keep up my end of the chores. Instead of sleeping in on Saturday or Sunday, I get up and catch up on chores. She can do the same. We get it. A woman hurt you. But no, she communicated perfectly, multiple times, set herself up for success. A 35-year-old freeloader who pays no bills and doesn't want to contribute at all is the jerk. I am a woman. As I said, he's not taking advantage of her. He's complying with their agreement. She can still do her part. She might not do it every day, but she can give up an hour or two of sleep on the weekends to get it done. It's not rocket science. You know full well if a man would have made this post, people would be all over him saying, "Oh, you expect her to do everything and clean up after you, blah blah blah." But when it is a woman posting that she is working a lot and can't do chores, then it's all good and fine. Talk about a double standard. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. I love it when the minions on Reddit get into quarrels with one another. 6 dirty dishes made me quit this place. Perhaps relevant. I opened this location as the assistant manager, took a long maternity leave, then returned as a shift lead. The GM is the same one I was assistant to. In August, the morning cook quit, and we still haven't replaced him. I've been doing twice the work since then. The start of my shift is stressful because I set up the entire cook line alone. In 90 minutes, I do all this. Turn on all the equipment, turn on 6 of the 8 fryers, clean the filter machine, filter the other 2 fryers and turn them on. Top of the fryers with fresh oil. Stock up 2 stations with about 150 pounds of meat on each. Set up ice bath and batter for both stations. Make and hot hold our buffalo sauce. Temp all the fryers. Start 2 new time control logs. Set up sanitation water and hot soapy water. And have all of the fried chicken ready before we open. So drop about 20 minutes before open. Yesterday morning, I was 5 minutes late due to the snow. There were multiple containers of chicken that were half full or less, so I had to spend time consolidating them. There was also not a drop of batter in the house, so I had to make a whole batch, which takes at least 5 minutes. Finally, all our livers were spoiled, so I had to take those out to the dumpster and take them off the POS. Basically, about 15 minutes of not setting up the line. As I'm scrambling to finish the batter I made, the kitchen aide, Marta, tells me I need to do my dishes. I had dropped off a couple chicken containers, the pan that had the spoiled livers, a bowl, and 2 whisks. She was training one of the line cooks in kitchen aide duties, so there was an extra person. This means she had less to do and was doing dishes immediately when they came to the dish pit. As I'm rushing to open the line alone, I saw her just stand around watching the trainee. I clarified 3 times that she was talking about me. I was so taken aback for multiple reasons. 1, she saw me hustling to do all this crap, and I was running behind. 2, I always contribute to the dishes. I even stay late sometimes to do all the dishes and clean the dish pit and put in fresh water before the evening kitchen aide comes. 3, I'm a shift lead, and she's supposedly my subordinate. I simply said, "I'm too busy right now," to which she said, "No, it doesn't matter." I told her I would do them later then, and walked away to continue setting up the line. It's 25 minutes before open at this point, and I'm only halfway set up. When I come back to get the second batter container, she stops me again. She tells me that dishes are all our responsibility, and we have to collaborate as a team. Okay then, leave them aside and I'll do them later. She immediately says no. I have no problem doing the dishes. I actually genuinely enjoy it. It's soothing to take something dirty and make it clean. The water is warm and the soap smells nice. I just can't wash dishes and also set up the entire cook line while on a time crunch. The general manager, Bill, arrived a couple minutes after the altercation. Immediately discredited my thoughts and feelings on this. He kept repeating that it wasn't a big deal and that she didn't realize I was so busy. When I said that's not the point, Her saying no and lecturing me about how to do my job is called insubordination. Bill actually rolled his eyes and said it's not that serious and to calm down. Marta did not need to apologize to me. She was passive-aggressive the rest of the shift. She put me in danger by not calling out basic kitchen safety things like behind you with hot or oven opening behind you. She opened the oven door and it actually grazed my leg and she didn't say anything. Marta then argued with Bill about cutting the potatoes. He said she was cutting them too small. There was a back and forth. Then later I checked and the potatoes were cut the way Marta likes them. She runs this store now apparently. I had to work the rest of the shift feeling like crap. Bill even told me I should apologize to Marta so things aren't awkward. I retorted that she should be written up for insubordination. Bill rolled his eyes again. At the end of my shift, I put in my resignation. I told him that he expects me to do all the manager duties, but I don't get the same respect. I let him know that he discredited everything I said and solidly defended Marta. I even let him know that I don't have a job lined up, but I just couldn't take the disrespect. I'm sad. I loved that job. I could see myself there another 10 or 20 years. But the way Bill handled that situation was the glass-shattering moment. I am not valued. I am not respected. I work so hard, and I have a supportive management style. I'm always helping wherever the work is needed. Being lectured on dishes is just straight up offensive to me, and Bill did nothing to support me. Edit. Talk to the office manager of a dental office I used to work for, and I start Monday. To those weirdos attacking me, weird that you assume my income supports my kid, and my womanly emotions have now caused us to be on the streets. My husband makes more than enough for me to not even work, and it's my choice to work. I quit with nothing lined up because I knew I'd have a new job in days, and that I don't even need a job at all. Why do you people spread hate and anger like that? This is just a vent that a lot of people here can relate to, nothing more. It's not that serious. Calm down. Am I the jerk for making a scene when my son refused to dance with me? This all started when my son, Ben, graduated high school. There was a formal dance. I was very excited for the mother-son dance. Every time I brought it up, Ben would say he wasn't going to dance. I didn't take him seriously. I thought he was just being shy. When we got to the formal, everything was beautiful. But when it came time for the formal dances, he was nowhere to be seen. I approached my older daughter, Alice, and my husband, who I could see were talking and laughing. I asked if they had seen Ben, and they laughed and said he was going to go hide so he didn't have to dance. I was absolutely heartbroken. My son was literally hiding from me. I stood in the corner during the mother-son dance, watching all his friends dance with their moms. I couldn't take it, so I told my husband and daughter that I was walking home. When they got home, Ben walked right past me and went to his room to get ready for the after party. My daughter hugged me and went to go get ready because she was driving Ben to the party. After our kids left, my husband and I had an argument about what had happened. He said he was appalled at my behavior and that I was acting like a kid. I said that the least Ben could have done was dance with his mother. He said that today was supposed to be about him and his accomplishment, not me. But in my opinion, today should have also been about celebrating the people who helped him get to where he is now. Things got quite heated, and before going inside, my husband said that he wasn't going to force his son to do something he didn't want to do on his day. I was taken aback by this, so I just stayed on the porch, trying not to cry. I thought my husband would support me. Later, my daughter returns home and sees me crying. She gives me a hug and gave me a chocolate bar to try to cheer me up. If no one else, my daughter would be on my side. She danced with me at her graduation. She danced with her father. She understood how important this day was for me. I asked if she was on my side. She said something along the lines of, "I know you're upset, but I don't know what you expected from him." It took a few days before we really spoke to each other again, and after a few weeks, everything went back to normal. Coming back to the present, my daughter recently got engaged. We were talking about it on a family FaceTime, and the topic of when Ben will get married came up. He said he was never going to get married because he doesn't want to deal with another round of dance drama. When I asked him to clarify, he said that he was obviously referring to his graduation. I was appalled at this attack. He won't get married because of me? I won't lie. I'm upset that he still does not want to dance with me, even at his own wedding. Now my husband is mad at me. My son refuses to answer my calls or texts. Am I the jerk for making a scene and starting an argument because my son never wants to dance with me? Edit. Okay, it appears as though the response is pretty unanimous and I have a lot of thinking to do. You're the jerk. When he said, I don't want to dance, that should have been the end of the story. It sounds like you walk over his boundaries often, and that was one of the first times he's spoken up to you about it. You're going to be a very interesting mother-in-law. I don't understand why he couldn't have had just one dance with his mom for the son and mother dance, while all of his other classmates did. Was he too cool to dance with his mom? I'm pretty sure every teenager feels that way. But the others somehow managed to make it through one dance with their moms. Hopefully he will be really embarrassed for humiliating you this way. I'm not gonna lie, all these "you're the jerk" comments are a little harsh. I do agree with the son having the right to say no to the dance, but it is a little harsh. His mom was excited for this dance. I feel for her too. As someone with a husband that refuses to dance for anything, even weddings, I sympathize. I'm sorry that this experience hurt you, OP. I don't think you're the jerk, but nor is your son. It just sucks. No jerks here. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her son? Please let us know.
If Reddit Boy wanted to dance with me, he'd need a new...
I know. I'd need a new head.
I was just going to say you'd need a new pair of shoes. Those things have been falling apart for the last 3 years.
I do work here, now. My birthday is coming up soon, so I decided as a gift to myself, I would buy another guitar. You can never have too many guitars. I figure I'm going to be 55 in a few days, so why not? I went to the local music store I haunt for my strings, straps, picks, and the occasional repair since I'm an incompetent boop when it comes to the electronics. As I walked around trying to see if there was a Strat that caught my interest, I would take a guitar, plug it in, check the action, intonation, see if it worked for me, if I liked the sound. And yes, I played Stairway to Heaven. That forbidden riff is just crap from Wayne's World that people bought into. The employees at the store don't really care about what you play as long as you're not a jerk hammering away on the guitar with the amps cranked up when they just want to get through their workday like everyone else. I also played Pink Floyd, Queen, and some Metallica. As I played, I noticed a girl around 12 or 13 who was watching me. I said, "Do you play guitar?" The girl said with excitement in her voice, "Not yet. I'm here to get my first guitar and sign up for lessons. Mom and Dad said if I saved my money, they would help me buy an electric guitar and pay for lessons." I said, "Nice. Who's your favorite guitarist?" She smiled and said, "I like Wendy. You know, from Prince and the Purple Revolution and Lita Ford, Carlos Santana, Brian May, and most of all, Eddie Van Halen." Nice. Can I make a suggestion? The girl nodded, and I suggested to start with an entry-level acoustic. That way, if she got bored with it, like some kids do, sadly, it wouldn't be a big loss. Her mother walked over to me and asked if I would help them find one. I agreed, and we went over to the acoustic section. We tried several and found a nice dreadnought for a decent price. I told the girl to hold it and see how it handles. The neck was a nice size, so she could wrap her hand around it, and the girl said, "It's perfect." I said, "Here, take this pick." I showed her how to hold it, and I gave her a quick lesson on how to play the basic one string at a time and taught her how to play the happy birthday song real quick. She's a natural and picked it up quickly. I found the guitar I wanted, a Flying V, and walked over to the register with it in my greedy hands. The mother said to the cashier, "We'll take this one, and I want to sign my daughter up for lessons. This salesman is really good. Will he be giving the lessons?" The cashier, who I've known for years, said, "He doesn't work here. He's a customer like you. But I have known him since we opened, and he's a really good guitarist. I've been wanting to hire him as a teacher for a long time." The mother said, "He doesn't work here? But he's so good at sales and a good teacher." The cashier looked at me and said, "There's a job offer on the table. You wouldn't deny this sweet girl the chance to learn from you, would you?" I looked at the girl, who was now giving me the biggest doe eyes, and said simply, "Please." I said, "I just retired from working last month. I guess I'm now semi-retired. I never thought in my life I would be giving guitar lessons, but now every other day I'm going to be giving lessons, at a decent pay too. Crazy how things work out. I know this isn't usually what you read here, but I thought it was fitting, and sorry about formatting. I'm not a professional writer by trade. My past life, I owned a restaurant. Am I the jerk for going on a trip with my family that my wife isn't going on? Recently, my parents surprised me, 26 male, and my siblings, who are 16 and 19, with a ski trip this December, the day after Christmas. My parents offered to pay for my expenses and said that my wife, who's 24, was welcome to come, but she would need to pay her own way. My wife and I are okay financially, but with the trip being so close to Christmas, we wouldn't be able to afford to pay for her to go. Despite this, I really wanted to go on the trip as it was always a dream of mine to go on a trip like this. My family grew up dirt poor until I was about 15 when my parents' business took off, and now they're extremely comfortable and they can afford to pay for trips like this for us. They could certainly afford to pay for my wife to also go, but they have always been this way about when it comes to paying for things for me versus my wife. My parents think it's only fair to pay for me when we go out to eat or go on trips because they're still paying for my siblings. I don't ask them to, but it is nice to save money, so on every trip they will pay my way. Room and board, excursions, meals, while my wife was expected to pay her way. This started before we were married. This has always bothered my wife, especially after we got married and they still excluded her. So in these past 2 years since we got married, I tried to limit the trips since they bother her so much. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime trip for me, so I thought she would be supportive of me going. But she's very upset and hurt. She wants to go on the trip, but like I said, we just can't afford it, which she understands. She told me she does want me to have this experience, but she's sad because she thinks my parents purposefully exclude her. Am I the jerk for choosing to go on the trip and leaving her behind? I still have time to cancel on my parents, but I know they would be sad. So, you are well aware that your parents are intentionally excluding your wife, and apparently this is definitely not the first time, and you don't understand why she's so hurt and upset about this, especially when it's during Christmas? Think about it, dude. Think real hard. You're the jerk. You really think your parents don't know what they're doing here? Save up and do a similar trip with your wife as a couple if it's that important to you. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. Either she's family to your parents or she isn't, and clearly she isn't. And you're a serious jerk to your wife by letting your family continuously exclude her. They should either be paying for both of you, or you and your wife should be covering for the two of yourselves. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
Bruh, what's with all the adults on Reddit who still have mommy and daddy pay for their stuff? I just don't get it.
Am I the jerk for telling the entire family that my brother is getting married after he made the wedding on my son's birthday? I'm one of 6 kids, but this post is about my younger brother who's 40. I have 4 kids who are 20, 18, 15, and 10. My brother has 5 who are 16, 15, 12, 3, and 4. We don't get together often because my girls and his oldest don't get along, and because we're a 4-hour plane ride from each other. My son's birthday is around Thanksgiving. We've always had my family on Thanksgiving, and we always have a big family party for his birthday. My brother is a busy person. He owns a large company. So I was asking him what day he'd be available for the party. He wasn't available any day, which I thought was weird considering he always tries to meet with me and the rest of our family around Thanksgiving. Then I got a text from a mutual friend asking what I was wearing to my brother's wedding and if I had any ideas for a gift since he couldn't find a registry. I asked her what she was talking about, and my friend told me that he was getting married. I didn't even know he was engaged. He told us last year that he was in a relationship and they had just had a child together, but nothing about getting married. After some digging, I found out that the wedding would be on my son's birthday and only 2 of our siblings and their kids are invited. I thought this was incredibly rude of him, so I decided to tell the entire family at Thanksgiving that he was getting married, when and where. Some family members made an appearance at his wedding and he found out I was the one who told them about it. He called me the next day screaming at me for ruining his wedding, then blocked me on everything. I'm starting to feel bad, so I wanted to know if I was the jerk. Edit. I'm seeing that some people are confused. First of all, my brother didn't want a small wedding. There were at least 300 to 400 people at the wedding. Second, the wedding was not on Thanksgiving. It was on my son's birthday, which is very close to Thanksgiving. You're the jerk. Holy moly. Clearly, he has a reason for not inviting you and the other family. Maybe do some self-reflection into that. You maliciously told your family they crashed his wedding. I hope your apple falls far away from the tree. Karen neighbor asks me to close my windows. I, 30 female, work from home. I also obviously live at home. I never have my curtains or blinds closed unless it's too sunny out or too hot. The issue. Recently, my neighbors approached me when I was outside taking out the trash and informed me that they were uncomfortable with being able to see into my windows and the fact that I can always see into theirs. I don't. Frankly, I could give a hoot about what my neighbors are doing. I'm either watching TV working, or sleeping, or not at home. I just told them not to worry because I'm not looking anyways. They went on about my life and thought little more of it. A few weeks passed, and then my neighbors caught me outside again while I was walking home and they were washing their car. This time, they were much more abrasive, essentially telling me I needed to close my blinds from now on because they're tired of being uncomfortable with my windows always open. I again told them I don't pay attention to them, and they're the ones constantly checking in. They can close their own blinds. Then they said that they stopped using their patio because they can see me working and they know I'm taking glances at them. I just laughed at them at that point and told them they're nowhere near as interesting as they think for me to waste my time looking at them. Petty, I know, but I didn't appreciate their attitude. This was a few days ago. I told some friends, and naturally some are on my side and others are telling me I'm creepy and I just need to close my blinds like a normal person. Now I'm second guessing myself and I'm looking to you, Reddit. I don't think I'm the jerk here, but maybe I'm biased towards myself and my own needs. So, am I the jerk? Edit, to note, as there's been some confusion about how the setup is. We're not in the same building. I live in a corner unit of my building. Very lucky, no neighbors above or below me in my building on the second floor. Directly across from me is another older apartment building with giant evergreen trees for privacy, like 50 to 75 feet tall. They're not the issue. The neighbors with the issue are beside that building to the left, so they have to look diagonally across the alley to look into my apartment. Not the jerk. Your neighbors are ridiculously paranoid. If they have such a problem with your blinds open, why don't they just close theirs? The current situation is only bothering them, so they should be the ones to come up with a solution. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you close your blinds to keep the neighbors happy or not? Please let us know.
I'd open them even more and wave at them every time I see them. You want creepy? I'll show you creepy.
Try to pile on more work to raise your bonus? Not gonna happen. I oversee a team of a dozen folks when it's fully staffed. We had a fellow move out of state for school, a lady retire to care for her grandkids when her daughter got sick, then 3 people promote up within the organization all within 4 weeks' time, so almost half the team suddenly became unavailable. While I'm involved in the recruiting and onboarding process, management up to 3 levels above me tends to be a bottleneck. Each time someone let me know that they're moving on, I informed management and gave them a running total. We're at 84% staffing, we're at 66% staffing, etc. Ads were placed, first round interviews conducted by me and a team lead. Second interviews recommended to the next level of management, and that's where the process suddenly stopped. For a week, then 2, then 3. It commonly takes 2 to 3 weeks after hire to bring a new person up to speed to start being productive, and perhaps 8 weeks for a new person to reach 90 to 95% of median productivity goals. The existing team was ready to pull together and work harder to keep up the work, but I took each one aside and coached them that the heavy workload they were under was not their problem to solve. Yes, customers were complaining. Yes, other groups in the organization were getting frustrated that our team wasn't getting things done in a timely fashion. I encouraged them to work efficiently and well, but to not put in extra unpaid time or contribute their own resources to projects. And if anyone was insistent in their complaints regarding the team's productivity, send them to me and I would explain the situation. Middle and upper manglement across the organization started vocalizing about how little work was getting done. When I played the Uno reverse card that, hey, all we need is adequate, well-trained staff and we'll be able to keep up, and managers 1, 2, and probably executive 1 all have potential interviewees on their desk for almost a month now, I started getting the stink eye from those folks. I found out later that one or a couple of these folks that I report to and were also the next rungs in the hiring ladder had proposed the idea that this team could run just as well a little leaner, so they arranged to find out. Oopsie daisy. Metrics indicated that organizational goals weren't met because of their decision, but I was able to provide the stats that proved that the team's individual goals were met, and that in many respects, per-person efficiencies were improved. My team members got their bonus, middle management failed to achieve, so no bonus for them that year. Reply: well done. Congrats on backing up and looking out for your team. 2 years ago, I was part of a team of 6. Then 2 were let go. Then another left for a new job. Then the lockdown and one was laid off. Then another hit her breaking point and left. By May, I was the only one left. I tried, but didn't run myself into the ground, had a meltdown on my boss, and got a substantial raise. Let a lot of things go as I prioritized my tasks. We're back up to 5 now, and the auditors are asking questions about why stuff wasn't done in the latter part of 2019 and early 2020. Oops. I bluntly told the auditors that we had a drastic staff decrease and I was not able to do the work of 6 people. They understood completely, but middle management is now scrambling to do all the missed work, and I got another raise because absolutely nothing in my job description was pinged by the auditors. Snoop in my room? I'll leave you a fake pregnancy test to find. My mother-in-law moved in with us a month ago. I began to notice my stuff in the bedroom being touched, furniture rearranged, stuff moved, etc. I felt like I was going crazy because my husband is the only one who has access to the bedroom, and he usually doesn't touch nor come near my things. I figured it must be his mom walking in and snooping in my personal things. I told my husband, and he said his mom would never. I had a huge hunch, but couldn't install a cam in the bedroom to catch her in the act. So I got me one of those fake positive pregnancy tests, and I threw it in the bedroom's trash can. Note, the trash can was placed in the corner near the closet. Literally, the next day after I got to work, I got tons of calls and texts from my in-laws congratulating me for my pregnancy. My husband came over to my workplace and was all worked up about it, asking since when was I pregnant, and why didn't I tell him? I asked him how he found out, and he said his mom found the positive test in the trash can in the bedroom. I asked if his answer just confirmed that she's been snooping in the bedroom all along. He had a realization moment, but demanded we stick to the bigger issue. I said there was no bigger issue because the positive test was fake, and this whole thing was done to expose my mother-in-law's snooping. He was not convinced. He had me take an actual test right in front of him, and he was livid, asking how could I lie about such a thing and break his mom's heart since I know very well that she longs for kids. I got a lot of crap because of this from him. His mom and family are now calling me a liar and a manipulator. Am I the jerk? Important info. Nothing gets taken or goes missing from the bedroom, just to be clear. Not the jerk, but ordering a lock for the door and kicking mother-in-law out seems easier. If you were pregnant, how dare she announce it? So many red flags. One of you needs to go, and it shouldn't have to be you. Not the jerk. You told no lies. Even if you were pregnant, she had no right to announce it to the world. Sounds like one of you girls should move out. I wonder which one your husband would prefer. Not the jerk, but it sounds like you have a husband problem as well, since he was focused more on you breaking his mom's heart instead of 1, her snooping in your bedroom, and 2, her blabbing her mouth to everyone instead of immediately going to you and your husband. Of course, snooping is terrible and deeply disrespectful, but it's made even worse by how she went behind your back to spread the news without any confirmation or follow-up. And if she's like this about a pregnancy, I imagine she has just about zero respect for anyone's privacy or boundaries at all. Yikes. I would not want to raise a family around someone like that. $5,000 medical bill? We'll see about that. My boyfriend had to go to the ER after an accident, and he got a truly ridiculous bill back. I offered to fight the bill for him because I've done it before, and he said sure. I went all out because honestly, if we were out $5,000 after insurance, that would really mess up our holiday plans very badly. So what I did was, I had him call the hospital and authorize me to handle his bill and access his medical records. Got an itemized bill and compared the prices for each code to the fair prices. Called billing to dispute the bill, but was told that billing only collects bills. I'd need to contact admin to dispute. Bounced around a call center for hours trying to get someone who was actually qualified for bill disputes and getting nowhere. Google and LinkedIn searched for the hospital board of directors and upper management. Got 30 emails of the most influential people at the hospital, plus the hospital's investors. Every day I would send a few emails, working my way up the chain and writing an increasingly long email describing how they billed my client at 7 times over the fair price for services rendered, and how their billing department, customer service department, and the growing list of management I'd emailed had failed to address the issue. Escalated the emails until I was writing the director-level staff with the entire board of directors and a number of outside investors CC'd, asking for a written statement regarding their justification for billing at a rate 7 times higher than the national average, and sternly laying out the failures to appropriately respond at every level of the company. Well, once I'd done all that, which was honestly only like 15 minutes a day, they reduced the bill from $5,000 to $26. Yep, $26. Well, I told my boyfriend the good news, and he was at first overjoyed and blown away, like literally jumping up and down and hugging me, saying that I was literally a Christmas miracle. But then when he asked how I did it, I said it wasn't too hard. I just had to send a couple emails each day. He was curious what I had said, and I handed him my phone. He started to get stressed and flipped back through other emails, which there were like 60 of. He told me I went way too far. He was expecting me to dispute through their billing department or something normal and reasonable like that, not internet stalk every single manager and board member and investor and harass them into dropping the bill. I was frustrated because I had just saved us $5,000, actually made it possible for us to afford a nice Christmas and save some money, and he was mad at me for what I had done? I was furious, and he was also mad at me, saying he authorized me to dispute a bill, not basically threaten and harass a whole darn hospital for weeks. Am I the jerk for how I got my boyfriend's medical bills dropped? You are a rock star, and you should be a professional advocate for those who get ripped off in healthcare like this. Your boyfriend is so unappreciative and is clearly clueless on how diligent you need to be to challenge an erroneous bill. When the hospital, doctors, and insurance companies are unwilling to help you resolve their errors, what else are you supposed to do? So many people just quit and either pay the massive bill or go into debt. Tell your boyfriend this is the only Christmas gift that you're giving him. Clearly not the jerk. Yes, OP, have you considered offering this service professionally? OP, my blood pressure would hate me, and without affordable medical care in this country, I don't know. Honestly, dealing with the medical system in this country infuriates me. It was so disingenuous at every step. Every single person told me I needed to speak to billing, despite it being a glorified collections office, and the employees there not even being able to see anything but my balance. Not the jerk. Hospital billing is intentionally messed up and difficult to address issues. When I gave birth to my kids 16 years ago, they double billed everything, and it took almost a year to get it all straightened out. I pretty much had to schedule hours into my weekly schedule to deal with contesting collections, getting it sent back to billing, dealing with some other person in billing, etc. With a newborn, and while I was also working full-time. It was an additional part-time job to fix the darn hospital bill. What you had to do is not abnormal. I told my dad's wife I own the house that she lives in. I'm 29, female. My dad married a woman named Maria a year ago after dating for 4 years. My dad wanted to buy a larger house for them to live in, but couldn't afford it without selling the home he lived in at the time, which is a unique property that he dearly loves. Although I now live abroad, I like the area he lives in, and my husband offered to buy a house there that my dad and Maria could live in. My dad agreed to this on the proviso that we not tell Maria that it wasn't him who paid for the house. This made no difference to me, so I agreed, and the house they live in is in my name, and they live there. I never planned to tell her. Recently, I went back to my home country and decided to stay with my dad for half my time there. The whole time, Maria made it clear I was an inconvenience and that me doing things with my dad was annoying to her. But I'm not a confrontational person and I don't react to much, so I let it go. However, 2 days before I was due to leave, she came into my room and saw that I had my dad's dog on the bed. Now, this is a dog that my dad has had since before he met Maria and that I raised. Maria doesn't allow him on her bed, which is fine, but I've always had him sleep on mine. She flipped out, saying this was the final straw, that she had had enough of me disrespecting her in her own home, and I had to leave. I tried to de-escalate the situation, saying we should just wait for my dad and sit down and talk this out, but she was adamant that I had to leave and that she had the authority to make me. After several minutes of me trying to explain to her that it was absurd of her to try and kick me out of my dad's house without talking to him, she said that what she said went, and since she married my dad, this is technically her house. I just chuckled and said since my name is on the deed, it's technically my house, but there's no need to get technical, we should just wait for my dad. She was shocked and left the room. When my dad came back, I told him what had happened, and he went to go speak to her. There was a shouting match, and she didn't speak to either of us until I left 2 days later. My dad is mad I told her, which I get. But since then, I've also got texts from her kids saying I was the jerk for telling her and making her feel like a guest in the house. This isn't the case. She isn't a guest, she's a tenant. But so is my dad, and the only point I was trying to make was that she didn't have any business trying to kick me out of my father's house, let alone my own property. I didn't take it there until she did. That said, maybe I should have just left the ownership out and let my dad handle it. Edit. For everyone talking about Maria being a tenant and tenants' rights, she doesn't pay rent, so I don't know if that makes her a tenant, technically. If it does, then as a landlord, I'm pretty sure I have legal recourse over the remodeling she did without notifying me or for my approval. And anyway, I wasn't there as a landlord. I was there as a guest of another tenant, and actually, she did have several weeks' notice I was coming in any case. I'm sure it's a legal rabbit hole, but the only reason I use the word tenant is to say that since she lives there, she isn't a guest in the home. Not the jerk. She internally struggled with wanting you to do what she wanted. It escalated due to her need to be the boss in her house. You disrespected me in my house. You were gracious to allow her to save face several times. You offered options. Call my dad. This type of personality will lose it once they know they don't have control. You did not make her feel anything. She created this situation. You again are gracious to allow them to enjoy a beautiful home. Maybe she feels deceived by your father. The kids need to pipe down. It was your first visit, and she was not cordial to you. Not the jerk. In the comment, OP points out, 1. It's furniture owned by OP, and 2. They do not pay to live there. If I'm doing someone a solid only to be disrespected like that, I'm done doing the solid. The stepmom is obviously a gold digger on a power trip. Yes, OP agreed not to say anything, but she didn't agree to being disrespected in the home she lets these people live in for free. Daughter's friend mocks me at dinner, gets banned from our house. I, 37 female, have 2 kids with my husband, who's 41, a 14-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. Our daughter has always been a little socially awkward to the point that we've had her tested since we suspected her of being on the spectrum. Turns out she isn't on the spectrum, she's just a natural introvert. However, this year in school, we were thrilled when our daughter made a new friend her age, since that is an area in which she struggles. Long story short, she recently invited her new friend over, with our approval, to have dinner at our house and then spend the night. So my daughter's friend came over. My husband is usually the cook in the family, and this night was no exception. He made us all a really nice meal. During the course of said meal, I asked my daughter's friend, "Are you enjoying the food?" She responded, "Yes, your husband is a great cook. No wonder you've ended up so big." The room got quiet for several moments. My husband tried to laugh it off and change the subject, but I wasn't having it. The girl had just leveled a completely uncalled for insult at me. My daughter's friend seemed to realize that she had messed up, but she didn't say anything else. We finished an awkward dinner in mostly silence, and my daughter's friend did stay the night. This was a couple of months ago. Recently, my daughter asked if she could have her friend back over, and I told her, sure, if she's going to apologize to me. When our daughter asked what I meant, I reminded her of what she had said. My daughter responded that it was over, and she didn't want to bring it up again. She then went to her father and asked. He said, sure, but she then told him what I'd said. He came to me and said, daughter's friend is just awkward and tried to make a joke. It didn't land. For the sake of our daughter, can't you just let it go? Yes, I could. But the thing is that I just want an apology from the girl. I need to see that she understands how rude she was before I can get on board with her and my daughter hanging out. My husband says that I'm being weird for insisting on an apology from a 14-year-old, especially since she is such a good friend of our daughter. I think it's weird that I'm still waiting for an apology from that same girl. Seriously, that's all I need. I just need to know that any friend of my daughter is willing to own up to her mistakes. You're the jerk. Did it ever occur to you that the reason this girl and your daughter clicked as friends is because they're both socially awkward? She's a 14-year-old kid. Even with the best social skills, they often put their foot in their mouths. Let it go. Don't ruin your daughter's friendship because your ego was hurt by one offhand comment. You're the jerk if you don't show this other awkward kid the same parental grace and gentle guidance that you probably hope others show towards your kid. Agreed wholeheartedly. You should have acted like an adult and gently redirected. Have the kid back. If something happens again and it has a malicious tone, then yeah, go all Gandalf on her. You're just hurting your daughter by continuing to hold a grudge from a teenager. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. Stop it. You're the adult here. Don't pick a fight with a 14-year-old. It's clear that this kid didn't mean to upset you. You really want to sabotage your own kids' friendships because of your ego? You don't need an apology. You need to act like an adult and shake it off. Edit to add. I also think it's pretty disgusting that you're putting your daughter in the middle of this. Because you didn't properly address the perceived slight at the time, you now expect your daughter to tell her friend that she has to apologize to you, while you sit on your throne and wait. You're the jerk. If 14 is old enough to apologize, 37 is old enough to communicate that at the time. You've taken an awkward moment that this girl probably wishes she could forget and made it into some huge issue. Have some grace, let it go, let her think it's forgotten, and let your daughter have a friend. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for wanting an apology or not? Please let us know. Would I be the jerk for taking my daughter to visit my family? My wife, Jenna, who's 28, and I, 32 male, had our daughter Averly 6 months ago. We've been together for 10 years and married for 3. We both live out of state from our families, and neither of us have the best relationship with them, though Jenna's family have made a lot of effort to come and visit, mend bridges, and interact with Averly since she was born. My family, mom who's 52, stepdad who's 55, 3 younger brothers, who are 17 through 21, live an extra few hours away and are yet to meet her. It's important to note that my mom and Jenna do not get along. Mom has always had something to say about Jenna, and the older Jenna's gotten and the longer it's gone on, the less Jenna has been willing to let it go over her head. This has resulted in us spending the last 10 years doing separate holiday visits. My plan this year was to drop Jenna at her parents' place safely after the flight and then carry on the extra 3-hour drive with Averly to mine, and then pick her up on December 23rd so we could spend Christmas Day as a family. Jenna's response was simply no. In our house, no is usually a complete sentence, but I asked her why, and her response was, "We talked about this when I was pregnant. You never had my back with your mom, so I don't trust you to advocate for Averly. And since she's made no effort to be around her, I'm not comfortable with letting you take our baby into that environment without me, and I'm not going to go somewhere it's evident I'm not wanted." I brought up the fact that I want my daughter to know my parents and her side of the family, and that Jenna was stopping that from happening, and how unfair it was to my mom given that her parents have been here at least twice a month since she's been born and have been able to have that bonding time. I told her I would drop her off and take Averly anyway, or me and Averly would fly into my parents' home airport, but one way or another, she would be meeting them this Christmas. That's when Jenna just cracked and broke. She started bawling and repeating how she couldn't believe I'd put her in that position. And when I told this story to my best friend at the pub, even he raised his eyebrow and said that it wasn't a good move. Jenna has been sleeping on the couch, and I'm beginning to feel awful and second-guessing everything. Would I be the jerk, or am I right in standing my ground here? You're the jerk. If your wife said that you never had her back, she's got all the reasons to trust that the baby might be treated or cared for in a way that she wouldn't approve of. This doesn't mean badly cared for, just not cared as if she would. I kind of understand her. Plus, if you had an agreement during pregnancy, why are you breaking it? As you say, her family did a lot to mend. Can you say the same for your family? You're the jerk. Your wife is absolutely correct. She had to put up with your mom's crap for 10 years. 10 years where you obviously didn't have her back, or your mother would have shut up and figured out a way to coexist by now. Your wife is definitely correct. You need to figure out a way to talk to your mom and say, "Now that my daughter is here, the rude comments and jerk behavior stops, period." Also, a 6-month-old is still pretty reliant on her mother. Also, I can't believe your wife has been sleeping on the couch. You're lucky it hasn't been a hotel. If I was her, it wouldn't be the couch and it wouldn't be me. I'm honestly just shocked at the ignorance here. I can't believe OP doesn't realize his behavior and how completely messed up this situation is for his wife. My stepmother expects to be the most important woman in my life. My dad is married to Janie. They've been together for a little over 6 years and married for about 4 now. Dad was a widower when they met. I'm 16, female, and my siblings are 14 and 12. Our mom passed 8 years ago. Janie has not adjusted well to being a step-parent. I think she thought she would be just a parent to us because our mom had passed and didn't consider that we'd still talk about and have photos of our mom. Over the years, she's been to therapy, and her and my dad have gone to couple sessions. In the last year, the 5 of us had gone to family therapy, and she has admitted it's hard for her because she feels like she's second best or a consolation to us, and that we don't really love her and want her. Dad assured her that we all love her just as much as Mom, that she's his number one and is vital to our family. For a while, then, in sessions, she and the therapist would talk about how she feels like she's not a true member of the family, like she's a second-class member, not someone we see as important in the structure of the family. She said she never felt love from any of us, and she feels like even extended family, which she explicitly said was grandparents and any aunts and uncles, come before her when it comes to us kids. She said she sees it in so many things, including the way we don't regard her parents as our grandparents or her 2 sisters as our aunts. And now when I turned 16 and we did a nice dinner party, my guest list included both my mom and dad's side of the family, but not her side. My sister was the first to speak during all this, and she said nothing was ever done to make her feel bad, that she just doesn't think of her as her mom or as being her parent. Once that was said, she was talking about how much that makes her feel bad and like she's not truly accepted. The therapist asked us to consider whether we'd be willing to deepen the relationship so she felt equally as loved and as important as our dad, and Dad wanted us to consider ditching our typical Christmas dynamic and spend the time with her parents exclusively this year. Then 3 weeks ago, she brought up that I had made something for class that went into details on my family, and she pointed out that she and her family were not mentioned. Then she asked me why my grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins were mentioned on both sides, all with their own pages, but I couldn't make room for the most important woman in my life, her. I told her because she is not the most important woman in my life. I told her that will always be my mom, followed by both my grandmas. She asked if she was just second best then, if she was unimportant, and I refused to answer. Afterward, my dad and Janie both told me that I was cruel to say she wasn't the most important woman in my life when she is there every day and has done her best. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and I think stepmom needs a different therapist because it doesn't seem like she's getting a lot out of this one. Your feelings about this are valid, and Dad is wrong for trying to force you to deepen the relationship when it sounds like stepmom is burning bridges and looking for a ready-made family of her own. Not the jerk. I think it's time to get blunt and tell the group that you think perhaps individual therapy for Janie so she can work on exactly why she needs you all to pledge your undying love and devotion so badly would be a better idea than this. Because if the goal of these sessions is to get you to pretend you don't miss your mom, let alone would ever choose Janie over having her back, that's not realistic, and you don't think it's healthy. Not the jerk. The reason why blended families have a higher failure rate is because the step-parent has a habit of coming in with this expectation they're going to be on the same playing field as the kid's biological parents. It doesn't work that way. Am I the jerk for telling my boss no to working weekends? I got hired for this salaried job where they really hyped up the work-life balance and reasonable hours in the job interview. Like the way they never expect people to stay late or work on weekends or holidays. That turned out to be BS. My boss got my personal phone number off my resume from when I applied, and after not long, he was blowing up my phone on nights and weekends asking me to come to work. I'd always not answer. Then when he'd ask on Monday why I wasn't answering my phone, I'd pull out my work phone like, "Sorry, are you sure you had the right number? I'm not seeing any missed calls." And he'd often say he called my own cell, so I'd say that I don't really use it much. I leave it home a lot, and when I do check it, I've usually got like 40 missed calls, and my voicemail is always full, so I probably miss stuff unless I'm expecting a call at a certain time. And that if he needs to reach me, he should try my work phone, because I'm very careful to follow up on any call to that within 1 business day. He asked me how he could reach me outside of 9 to 5, because he sees I leave my work phone on my desk at night and over the weekend. I said that honestly, I'm not glued to any phone on the weekend, so if he needs me to take a call on the weekend, could he make it a meeting request and put it on my calendar so I know to be available? Or if I know I won't be available to take a call, I can suggest an alternate time to call. He said that wasn't really gonna work for him. More often, things come up last minute, and when he calls people on the weekend, it wasn't planned, and that he's not calling for a teleconference meeting, he's calling asking people to come in. I said that on the weekends, I usually have commitments that were made 1 to 3 weeks out, and I'm not often able to cancel a previous commitment with under a day notice. So if he needs me in on a weekend, it would be best if he could schedule that 3 weeks out so that I know not to make conflicting plans. He said that wasn't possible, and I said okay. He could try and reach out and I'd answer the phone if I heard it ringing. But I wasn't always on the phone, so I might not catch it always. Anyways, I've gone back to ignoring his calls, and my coworkers have gotten kind of frustrated with me, saying that coming in on weekends is part of the job and that I wasn't pulling my weight. I said that I don't know what job they signed up on, but in my job interview, I was promised regular hours and took my pay based on regular hours, so I'm working regular hours. My coworkers got frustrated and said that if everyone did what I was doing, nothing would get done. I said maybe nothing should get done then, if it's coming at the cost of y'all not being home for dinner with the family. I don't really think my coworkers see it as an option to say no, so they're angry at me because I'm doing it and they're not comfortable doing it. Am I the jerk for not working evenings or weekends? Not the jerk, but be prepared to be fired soon. Your coworkers and boss are going to be looking for any reason to get you in trouble, and if you are on probation, expect to be let go. I know it sucks, but that's the way these companies' bootlickers work. Good on you for standing your ground, and shame on your company for lying to you about the job. Not the jerk. Wasn't a stated requirement, and your boss hasn't even formalized a schedule to adhere to. You don't have to be on call all weekend because something might come up unless it's specifically enumerated part of your job and comes with some form of compensation. Your coworkers are just upset you had the guts to say no to a bad organization. Weekends and overtime should be utilized as catch-up time if needed. If an organization cannot survive without this time, then something needs to change in the organization. You're the jerk. My business employs about 150 people. We treat them very well, and in return expect them to do the same. The moment someone complains about working weekends, we get rid of them. This isn't the local burger joint, we're a financial group. If I can't count on you to be a team player, maybe you should be buffing my Lexus. Sorry kids, your mommy is a liar. On the maternal side of my family, I have a cousin who is an entitled parent. Admittedly, I don't see her very often because her parents got divorced when she was a kid and her mom always got her for the holidays, so she didn't really feel connected to our family, which is fine and valid, but she lied to us a lot when she was an adult that she would come and never did, and it kinda hurt everyone inside a bit, especially my grandmother. But every time I do see her now, it's a bit of a nightmare. The last time I saw her was in 2019 at our grandfather's memorial, where she showed up 3 hours late in casual clothes. It was a semi-formal event that were covered in stains and dog fur. And the first thing she did was approach our newly widowed grandmother and ask her for money. So yeah, she's not a great person, but since her mom is raising her kids, they're super sweet. Anyway, during 2021, my paternal grandfather passed, and when he first got sick, he and my grandmother decided to give myself, siblings, and cousins our inheritance because they didn't want it to get lost between fighting if it were to be sorted out after they passed. My aunt, Dad's sis, is also an entitled parent, but this ain't about her for once. We were each given 50,000 Canadian dollars. My brothers and I immediately put the money into tax-free savings account and savings accounts because there's only so much money that you're legally allowed to put in TFSAs. One thing about the money, we told no one. Only our immediate paternal family knew, and we weren't going to tell anyone else because people get weird about money. My maternal side of the family has been fixing up our old family cottage, and one of my brothers is in the trades and doing well for himself, so he decided to buy a used boat off Kijiji with the inheritance money from his savings and then quickly replaced it. Our maternal side was told about and shown the boat, and we just told them he got the money from the trades. Well, my paternal grandmother let it slip about the inheritance to my maternal grandmother, who accidentally mentioned it to one of my poorer uncles. He makes poor financial decisions, and he told the rest of the family. He pouted a bit, but overall, no one asked us for money and understood why we didn't tell them. Since we're not getting together for Christmas this year, we were having a video call to chat and wish happy holidays before we all got busy, and my maternal cousin was there, much to everyone's surprise. Not even 5 minutes into the video call, this conversation happens. Cousin:
All right, boys, what do you want to say to your auntie?
Kids:
Thank you for taking us to Disney.
Me, who isn't even planning on going anywhere near the US with a 10-foot pole. What are you talking about? Cousin:
You're paying for us to go to Disney.
Me: No, I'm not. Where did you hear that? Kid 1:
Mommy said that you'd send us to Disney because Grandma gave you lots of money.
My cousin, who had a very smug look on her face and clearly knew what she was doing, and that no one, least of all I, had said anything of the sort.
Yup, and we're so grateful because Grandma didn't give us any money, so thank you.
Me, who's 100% done with this and all the pain she's caused my family. Sorry, kids, your mommy is a liar. I'm not sending anyone to Disney. She lied to you. And the money I got was from my other grandma because my grandpa got sick and passed. It's not from this side of the family. I'm sorry that your mommy lied to you. She shouldn't have done that. It was wrong. She owes you an apology. Everyone on the call was just frozen. And then it erupted. Her kids started yelling at her. Why would you lie? And that was so mean. And my personal favorite, are you lying about other stuff? Probably, kiddos, probably. She looked so angry and betrayed on camera, and my relatives started chiming in, but there were too many voices, so I said bye and left the call. My mom called me. I live in a different province for uni, and said what I did was uncalled for, but I pointed out that because of her, there was no way for me to leave that conversation without looking like the bad guy, because I was absolutely not using my money to give her a free vacation, and that she had lied too much to our family and directly caused us a lot of pain, and it was probably for the best that her kids caught on quick. She just said that what I did was uncalled for and hung up. But then I started getting texts from other relatives in the call, and everyone except for the broke uncle who's always complaining about his poor financial decisions was on my side, because she had hurt them too. My grandma called to thank me because the only reason my cousin comes around anymore is for money, and it's very hurtful. My cousin was texting mean things at me until I blocked her. Then I started getting messages from her mother because her kids were getting so unruly from this betrayal that she just ditched the kids with her mom until her mom could get them calmed down. Like, how entitled do you have to be? She demands a free trip and then ditches her kids the moment she has to parent. Karen is demanding I take care of her cat since she's pregnant. My wife, who's 28, and I, 36, are expecting our first baby. 3 years ago, my wife decided she desperately wanted a cat. I can't stand cats and all animals that stay in the house, really, so I was against it. She wouldn't stop talking about it, so finally we made a deal that she could get a cat, but it would be her responsibility and I wouldn't have anything to do with it, and she agreed. She stuck to her word and I stuck to mine. I mostly ignore the cat. Now she's pregnant and asked me if I can scoop the litter until she gives birth because of toxoplasmosis. But I looked it up, and as long as she wears gloves and washes her hands, she should be good. So I told her absolutely not. She wasn't happy, but I reminded her of our agreement. When we got the cat, I told her that it was her responsibility, and if she didn't want to take care of it anymore with the new baby coming, we can get rid of it and find it a new home. She said no and has been scooping the litter. Her sister was over and saw her doing this and flipped out at me, telling me how dangerous it is. But of course, her sister is going to be on her side and overreact. I never wanted the cat, so I don't see how I'm in the wrong. You're the jerk. Even if she finds some safe ways to do it, it's still recommended that pregnant women don't change a cat's litter box. You're really going to stick to this agreement for your wife and baby's health? You know it's just temporary. You know she'll go back to changing the litter box once she has the baby. But why risk your baby's health by the possibility of her getting toxoplasmosis? Just to stick it to her? To have a reason to get rid of your wife's cat? You're the jerk. The 5 years my husband and I have been together, I have done the litter. As soon as I popped positive, he took over the chore immediately. Not just for the toxins, but the smell makes me sick too. Is it really that hard to be a good husband? Right now, you sound like you suck. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. My half-siblings feel left out, and I don't care. My parents were married and had me, I'm 16 female, and my brother, 18 male. My dad had an affair with Kate, and mom and him divorced. Ellie, 11, was the result of the affair, and Tommy, who's 9, was born when dad married Kate. A year later, Kate passed away. My dad's family rallied around my half-siblings and tried to make up for the loss of their mother. My mom shared custody of me and my brother with my dad. He had asked her to include Ellie and Tommy in her life after Kate had passed, and even told my brother and I a few times that they would be coming to mom's with us and she'd be their mom now too. My mom never did take Ellie or Tommy into her home. I don't even think she's ever interacted with them. When I look back at moments where everyone was present, she was always one side with her family and Dad was another with his and my half-siblings. Ellie and Tommy, as they have gotten bigger, have expressed all the emotions you might when you don't have a mom, but you sometimes share a home with kids who do. They get jealous, sad, frustrated. They've asked us to share mom with them. They've wanted to come along when they hear mom is taking us on vacation. They've wanted us all to spend Christmas together. All kinds of stuff. They also have just Dad's side of the family since none of Kate's want to be in their lives. But we have both sets of grandparents and aunts and uncles involved in our lives. A few times over the years, Dad or my grandma or uncle have asked me if I don't dislike that mom wouldn't open her heart to kids who are part of my family. I always said no, because they are not her kids, and so it doesn't make sense to me that she would. My dad wanted to try and get my half-siblings' wish to come true for Christmas, where we'd all get together, which would include my brother and I and our mom. Mom said no. She did not engage with him beyond her no. Ellie and Dad then tried to get me to talk mom around, and I said no, and I told them I did not want to talk her around. Ellie got upset after hearing that and left. Dad and my grandparents then cornered me later and asked me how can I say that when I know Ellie and Tommy feel left out and that they crave mothering. I told them I don't care if they feel left out because it's not my mom's job to mother them, and I would never expect her to do it, and since one can't be fixed without the other thing happening, like them feeling left out can't be fixed unless they feel like they now have a mom and my mom, then I realized it's not going to happen. They told me my mom could and should have love for them as her children's siblings. I told them Dad should have thought about that before he cheated on her and got another woman pregnant while he was still married to my mom. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. As much as I feel sorry for these kids, your mom shouldn't be pressured to mother them precisely because they are the result of the affair. If your dad is so desperate for them to have a mom, he should remarry. You're the jerk, because this is a case where you're right on the fact that it's not your mom's job, but you are a jerk for the utter lack of empathy towards your much younger half-siblings. They didn't ask to be a product of an affair. They didn't ask for their mom to pass young. Your dad is a mega jerk for sticking you in between your siblings and his ex-wife, but do remember that they're innocent in this before saying, I don't care about them. My wife kept interrupting my meetings, so I no longer work from home. I work in the medical field. I often discuss confidential information with clients and doctors. I'm not a doctor myself. In July of this year, I finally had an opportunity for employment that would give me the option of working from home. I sat down with my wife and explained that this was a good thing for us. I would be home 3 more days every week. I would still be going into the office on Tuesday and Thursday, but the other days I could skip out on the commute. I could help with my daughter in the morning and throughout the day. I could help with supper. I could see my 4-year-old daughter more. Not all the time, of course. I was still going to be working, but our car would be home 3 extra days. My wife could take our car and drop off our daughter with our parents or a sitter if she needed. We talked to my daughter and explained that even though I was home, I could not spend all of my time with her. I explained that if the door was closed, she needed to knock quietly and ask permission to come in, and to accept it if the answer was no. My daughter understood. My wife did not. She was constantly coming into the office when I was in meetings. I had to excuse myself to get her out of the room. More than once, I saw my daughter trying to keep her out of my room. One time, my wife was trying to carry my daughter into the room, and my kid was holding onto the door jamb so she didn't get in trouble for coming in when the door was closed. I finally put a lock on the door. She said she didn't like being locked out of a room in her house. I explained that the door being closed and a sign saying that I was in a meeting didn't stop her. She finally got the point, until this Thanksgiving. I was working on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and she needed to go buy something for our meal the next day. And for some reason, she could not take our daughter with her, or drop her off with either set of grandparents, or a drop-in daycare where we have a spot. She instead decided to shake my locked door and knock until I answered. I muted my meeting, opened the door, and told her to leave me alone until the end of the day. She left and texted that my daughter was watching TV in the other room. I talked to my boss, and I went back to work at my workplace starting last week. I hate being away from my daughter and my wife. My wife hates being limited to using Uber on the days that I'm not there, or depending on our parents. Now she's mad at me for going back to the office. I told her that it's her fault for not understanding that I was working from home, not just playing video games in my home office. I feel like a jerk, and she says I am. But I am the sole breadwinner for our family. If I got laid off because of her, we would be in financial hardship. Not the jerk. Working from home is work, not just being home during work hours. Exactly. OP's wife is definitely the jerk. Her husband set clear boundaries, not the jerk. You explained it so clearly that a 4-year-old could understand it. When there is a very real chance of legal repercussions from a privacy breach due to your wife's negligent behavior, she left you no choice. You have to protect the income for your family, so I don't see how working at home was still a viable option. And it really sucks because it deprives you and your daughter of extra time together. Am I the jerk for not going to my sister's child-free wedding? My sister is getting married next month to my best friend. She always wanted a nice snow wedding in the cabins we used to go to when we were in middle school. Everything was going fine until she told me that it was a child-free wedding. Now, that would be fine with my wife and I because we would just drop off my son and daughter at my wife's parents or with their godparents. But my sister had asked them to be their ring bearer and the flower girl. Apparently, they want the kids to perform their duties at the wedding, but then not attend the reception. That means either my wife or I will have to be there with them alone in the cabin while everyone else is partying it up. But wait, I'm the best man and will be conducting the reception, so it's just going to be my wife. What about food? My mom will give my wife 20 minutes to come in, grab some plates with food, and come back because the mother of the bride can't be missing for too long. So they expect me to abandon my wife and our kids, who are under the age of 7, in a tiny cabin that is not childproof, where the source of heat is a fireplace and there's barely any cell signal. This is the day after driving for 7 hours with said kids. Not only do I think this is not a safe idea, considering it would be in the middle of winter, my wife has never even been to these cabins and the lack of ability to properly communicate, but also I think it's incredibly rude to invite someone to a destination wedding where they are only allowed to attend the wedding. Although my wife says she can manage, she's really gullible sometimes and is a little bit of a people pleaser. I refuse. She's not being treated like a guest, but as the babysitter for the ring bearer and flower girl. I tried to talk to my sister and the jerk I call my best friend, who always preaches about me being there for friends, loyalty and whatnot. But they are not conceding or willing to compromise. I asked if my kids could attend until the toasts, games, and food. Then all 4 of us would retire to the cabin and let them party. No. If we could go completely child-free and leave the kids behind. No. If I just attend the wedding and retire to the cabin after the wedding. No. My sister is against all of these ideas, while the jerk has taken a temporary vow of silence. So I'm upset and said I'm not coming, which in turn began the messages and calls from everyone. My family, the groom's family, and their and our friends. My wife has openly said that she can manage this, but I know that's to keep the peace. My kids are also upset because before asking us, my sister and the jerk asked them first to participate in the wedding, and they were really excited because they're close with both of them. With all of these calls and messages, I feel I'm going crazy, and maybe I am the jerk instead. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. If she wants child-free, then she does not need your kids as props. As a parent, you have the right to not attend a child-free wedding without guilt. Tell her she should hire some local kids for the gig. My sister is trying to make me go out to places with her that I don't want to. My sister has just given birth about a month and a half ago, and I went over to help her with the baby and house chores since her husband couldn't take leave from work. The problem is, my sister is an extremely outgoing person and loves going to places and trying out new things. Me, on the other hand, I'm burnt out, and all I'm thinking about for an outing is how I will be carrying the stroller across the long metro stairs, the baby needing a diaper change, and us running to the nearest toilet, the heavy traffic, the loud noises. In short, I see it as stress and a chore, not something I do out of enjoyment. For several days in a row now, I've been holed up in my room and refusing to go out with her while she goes out alone. Today, she told me that we will just go to the nearest park and that it's unhealthy for me to stay cooped up in the house all the time. I declined again, and she became upset and said she wasn't in the mood to go out anymore. She asked why I was even over if all I wanted to do was to stay at home, that she was depressed and I'm making her feel worse. I told her she can always go by herself and leave the baby with me, but she said that defeats the point of having company. She grumbled about no one caring about her and went into their bedroom and shut the door. I've been thinking maybe I should have just sucked it up and just gone with her, but I don't know why she insists on me going out too when I said I'm exhausted. I don't know. Am I the jerk? Update. I tried to knock and talk to her, but she still won't talk to me, so I wrote her a letter and slipped it underneath the door. I'm on my way to the hotel until my flight is up. We live in 2 different countries, so sorry. The kind suggestions for coming once a week, etc. are impossible. Once I'm gone for a good while. Edit to add info. I'm doing all the household maintenance and cooking, except for folding their laundry, cleaning up their bedroom, or grocery shopping, as her husband takes care of these. Some nights, when I hear the baby crying and none of them wake up, I go feed him and put him back to sleep. During the day, we can both be in the house, and I'd be the one changing him up sometimes. When she's out, I watch him. When she needs to go to the doctor's appointments, I go with her and watch him outside. When we went out to outings before, I'd take care of the stroller and carrying the bags. Not the jerk. You don't want to go out and you don't have to. You gave her choices. You are there to help with the baby, not her going out. Not the jerk. You're cleaning, cooking, and helping take care of the baby while struggling with your own mental health. Your sister sounds like an ungrateful brat. Most parents would do anything to have someone take some of that extra work off of their plate, not complain that you won't be their unpaid nanny during social excursions too. I'd go back home and dial your help down to cleaning or delivering meals once or twice a week. Her husband or someone else can step up for the rest. The presidential suite? Really? Sparkly Diamond member approaches the desk. Diamond member. Name is Bob. Me. Hello, sir. Welcome. I have your booking right here. Let me print the paperwork. Diamond member. Glaring and demanding. I'd like to request an upgrade. Me. Oh, all right. Let me see. You've already been upgraded from a standard twin to a king superior with a sofa bed. I want a suite. Me. Nervous laughter. Check system. Sir, we don't have a suite available. They're occupied. Jerk. Yes, you do. You have the presidential suite. Me. Him. Pulls out his phone to show me. I see you still have it on your website. His quiet Karen girlfriend also pulls out her phone to show it to me twice for some reason. Now, let me stop here to explain some good old context. The presidential suite is 800 pounds a night. It's 3 rooms with their own balconies. The wallpaper in those rooms is $1,000 a roll. The presidential suite is really gorgeous. I look at this dude's rate, and he booked a standard twin for 103 pounds for the night. Absolutely not happening. Me. Sir, we don't have the presidential suite available. Him. As a diamond member, I get free upgrades. He shoves the available suite at me, and at this point, I'm starting to shake because he's being super forceful, like a guy who would flip out if someone turned him down at a bar. Or a kid being refused a toy. Me. Trying to defuse the situation, I look more into the system. We have a King Superior Sea View tonight. I'd be happy to give you that. But the DM complimentary upgrades only allow for a room type in a category that's 1 grade up from the one you book. And we've done that. But I can give you this one, the King Superior. Him. I want to speak to your manager. Me. All right, gladly. I go get my manager, who's oddly enough talking to the general manager. I explain the situation. He comes out and repeats everything I said. Lo and behold, he begins repeating everything I have said. He explains that we can't give it to him because the suite is 4 rooms, but he'd also be happy to give him a king sea view. Jerk. No, I don't want that room. That room is rubbish. I stayed in that exact room last time, and it was dreadful. I want the presidential suite. Also, no, he didn't, and had no idea what number of said room it was going to be. Manager. Once again, sir, I'm not going to give you the presidential suite, but I have this lovely King Seaview room available for you. The jerk whines and says, I've driven 100 miles to come here. I know the CEO personally. The other hotel lets me have their presidential all the time. And my front office manager stands his ground. The guy sighs. Fine, cancel my booking then, he says, bluffing. Manager, like a robot. That's a shame, because I have a lovely King Superior sea view for you to enjoy. Jerk. No, I want the suite. Cancel my booking. I'm going to another hotel. Manager. All right. And he does that. So like nothing happened, my manager goes to finish the paperwork. I continue my nightly routine, watching the guy and his Karen girlfriend in the lobby fiddle on their phones. The jerk approaches. He asks to see my manager one more time. Manager sighs and comes out. The jerk sheepishly asks him to book him a taxi. Am I the jerk for yelling at my husband after he couldn't control the in-laws? Both me, 37 female, and my husband, 40 male, work from home. He works in the basement and I work in an upstairs converted office. I also have a daughter who's 17 from a previous relationship who lives with us full time. Anyways, last Thursday, my husband told me that his brother, who's 36, brother's wife, also 36, and nephews, who are 11 and 7, would be coming over on what is now today. I immediately told him, oh no, as today was my biggest annual meeting with one of our biggest clients, who is a local chain of retailers. I am the associate director, the partnership between our companies, and so I would have to help give a presentation. However, he kept telling me that they had just told him they were coming over. I finally relented, but told him that the kids would need to be quiet and could not be upstairs. Anyways, today swings around and I go to get ready. My daughter locks her room so that the kids can't get in. Inside, she has a gaming setup worth over $2,000 of gifts and stuff she has saved up from waitressing. I also locked my doors after I got my lunch. At about 1, they arrived over. I was in the middle of my meeting at this point. While about 20 minutes later, I hear 2 steps of small footsteps run up the stairs. They immediately start trying to get into my daughter's room, which is right next to my office. I immediately started texting and calling my husband, but he didn't respond. About 5 minutes later, I excused myself to the restroom, just as the kids went into my daughter's room. I made them go downstairs and told them not to come back up. A little later, after I got back to my meeting, I could hear the kids screaming from downstairs. Again, I text my husband and nothing happens. It stayed that way until 4:45 when my meeting was finished. I then went down to my husband's office and just let loose. Among other things, I called him some names he didn't like. I then grabbed my daughter and took her to my parents' house where I will be staying for the night. I honestly feel like I'm on the edge of divorce. This post may be a mess, but I am still worked up. Edit. I'm going to sleep for the night. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to get my laptop from the house. We'll check in on her setup and all of my other stuff. I'm going to stay at my parents' house for a few days. I'm definitely going to talk to therapists and reflect. Thank you for everyone's love and support. Not the jerk. Holy cow. Interfering with your partner's work is borderline mistreatment. Divorce and take everything. I think my Karen girlfriend is using me for money. Background. I, 23 male, currently financially support my girlfriend, 23 female. I give her some of my 2-week paychecks, usually to either pay her $800 rent for an apartment I had to co-sign for due to her being unemployed. I give her $400 to cover her car note, of which it currently is in need of mechanical checkup, which I told her I will cover the cost of her repairs, seeing as it's her only way to get a job. I ask her every day if she's okay and doing well. I call at least once a day. I'm attentive. She randomly asks for money. I'll send some her way. She asks for a lot from me. I only ask for quality time, cuddling, movie nights, etc. I am aware of the whole conundrum of what this relationship is. Don't focus on why I should leave. I'm well aware. I simply just want a measurement of if I'm the jerk with what comes next. She calls me tonight and asks if I can watch her 3-year-old son at around 10:30 p.m. She's going to go out with her female cousin. I say I'm willing to babysit as long as she comes home by 3 a.m. to spend the night with me because I love her. Give and take. She doesn't agree to a set time, complains that I don't give her enough space, even though I don't live with her, and says she basically wants me to leave when she gets home. That hurt, feeling unwanted, so I said I would pass. She proceeds to block me on everything. So considering how much effort I put into her and how much I care for her, am I the jerk for saying no? I know she's struggling every day with no money. She has a 3-year-old, while I sit at my parents' house chilling. I want her to be happy, but my happiness matters too. I thought I wasn't being selfish by asking her to spend time with me in exchange, and I passed because she wasn't up to doing that. Am I the jerk Did I deserve to get treated like that after all that I do for her? I get to say no, right? OP, this makes me sad. I can see how much you love her, but I'm sorry to say I don't think she loves you back as much as you do. You are doing a ton for her, financially and emotionally, and she has the guts to ask you to babysit her kid, but ask you to leave when she gets home? She does not love you, and I'm so sorry to say that, but that's not love, and you deserve so much better. You're clearly a good guy. Go find yourself a girl who's fun and nice and treats you how you deserve. Not the jerk, but your girlfriend is a major jerk. There's no excuses for her being a jerk, no matter what situation she's in. And do not feel guilty about leaving her if you decide to do so. It's not your responsibility to care for her if she does not care for you. Everyone sucks here. She is using you. You know she is, but then get mad that she is. You know what this relationship is. Either do every single thing she asks without question or break up with her. I'm sure you can find a more accommodating gold digger with less baggage to help you spend your parents' money. You're the jerk. Judge me all you want, but I'm in the same position she is. I'm 22, have a toddler and a 6-month-old, and I'm unemployed and not looking for a job. Parents cut contact with me and call me lazy, but they don't understand how much I struggle with my mental health. Right now, I have a couple of boyfriends who help me get by. The unemployment I receive is literally next to nothing. I don't let my boyfriends find out about each other because of course they will cut me off. I feel bad for your girlfriend because you're over here complaining and being controlling. You have to spend the night with me because I'm babysitting for you? What kind of crap is that? If you love her half as much as you claim to, then shut up and just support her like a good boyfriend should. You have no idea how hard it is for girls like us just to survive this day and age. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
I think jerk would be an understatement for that girl.
Am I the jerk for wanting my wife's son to leave the house after he turns 18? My wife and I have been married for 5 years, and she has a 17-year-old son from a previous relationship. The father left her and her son about a decade ago and has not been present in their lives ever since. I know it was a difficult experience for both of them, and they have a very tight bond as a result. My wife is on permanent disability and doesn't work, so I am the sole breadwinner in the household. I've always tried to be a very present figure in my stepson's life, but I also understand that I am not his father. For the past 3 years or so, her son has been having a lot of behavioral issues. When it started, my wife and I thought it was typical teenager acting out type stuff. But when his behavior continued over the course of months and into a year, we knew we had to take more action. We attended family therapy, got him individual therapy and counseling, worked with the school counselor, tried getting him involved in extracurricular activities, etc. We put a lot of time, effort, and money into as many ideas as we could think of, hoping that something would click. But nothing has worked. His grades in school are near failing, and he is at risk of not graduating next year. He will refuse to leave his room for days at a time. He has zero respect for me as a person, let alone a parent figure. He fights us on attending therapy and counseling sessions and will not participate when we get him there. I am at my wit's end. And I'm also starting to feel the hurt financially because my insurance doesn't cover all of the therapy and counseling. My wife's disability checks take some of the edge off, but I am hemorrhaging money at this point and falling behind on bills. My stepson turns 18 in a couple months, and I'm at a point where I want to stop paying for his therapy and counseling. I'm also at a point where I no longer want him in my house at the end of the next school year. After a recent outburst from him, I broke down to my wife and told her all of this. She was unaware of the financial problems because I didn't want her to feel that her son is a burden on us. But as hard as it is to say it, he kind of is. Out of anger and frustration, I told my wife my feelings about wanting him to leave our house, and she flipped out on me. She accused me of giving up on him and basically being okay with him becoming homeless. She said she would never forgive me if I abandoned him like his father did, and that I was the jerk for even thinking something like that, let alone telling her. It's been a huge rift between us since then, and it's put a huge damper on the holidays. A part of me wants to get this all out in the open since I think my stepson deserves to know what kind of a strain he's putting on all of us, but my wife insists on being protective of him. I feel like no matter what, I'm going to be the bad guy, but I also feel like I have done all that I can do. Am I the jerk for wanting to quit supporting my stepson? Not the jerk. You're doing everything you can to help your stepson. Unfortunately, you cannot help someone who doesn't want to be helped. While he is a minor and you have the authority to do so, have you considered inpatient help? I would suggest being honest with him. His behavior is unacceptable, and he either changes or leaves. You will pay for this therapy as long as he tries to help himself get better. This may cost you your marriage, but if you do not draw this line, you will be having this same conversation in 10 years. Everyone sucks here, but I also think you're mostly not the jerk. Kicking him out, unless to inpatient treatment, isn't going to solve his problems, only yours. It'll basically be the end of the relationship as well. Your wife has blinders on and is equating getting him inpatient help as abandoning him, and that will be their downfall as well because she'll become his enabler. Your wife being the enabler will drag you down as you are the financial backing of this family. From his point of view, I was working out a lot of trauma I didn't understand as a teen, and my stepfather and mother kicked me out and our relationship never recovered. I haven't actually spoken to her since I was in my mid-20s, almost a decade now. She's done to me. It's a really complicated situation you're in. Do you want to sync with your wife and her son? Could you tell her that as long as he isn't trying to get himself help, you're not going to waste the money and time either? Would you be okay closing the book on these relationships and going out on your own and letting them figure it out? Again, all complicated. No one is going to win. Not the jerk. This is why you don't marry single moms. All of my buddies who have had to deal with this kind of crap too. Her kid is never going to love you, and she will never love you anywhere close to the way she loves her spawn. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
He stuck around longer than I would have, I can tell you that much.
Should I put my phone down when someone is trying to talk to me? I work 12-hour shifts and get 2 20-minute breaks. Sometimes during a break, I'll sit and chat with friends I work with. But if none of them are on break, then I sit in a secluded area and go on my phone while I eat my lunch. I feel like my break time is the little personal time I get during the day to decompress a bit. We can't leave the plant, but I still feel like I should be able to do what I want with it. If I want to sit and stare at a wall, that's my prerogative. We're also not allowed to have phones on us when we go on the plant floor, so it's the only time I get to make calls or check texts. There's this guy I'll call Tom. I've been assigned the same machine as him a couple times, and working with him is brutal. I'm always more exhausted after a day of working with him than I normally am. He just talks and talks and talks about everything, but nothing really at all, if that makes sense. Yesterday, my weekend on, I was on break. Nobody I talked to was working, so I found a little 2-person table by the wall and ate my sandwich and went on Reddit. Most of the break room was empty. Then Tom came in, sat down across from me, and started babbling about work, production times, and what needed to be done. I was just responding with, and and was still on my phone because I didn't feel like talking to him and I was hoping he'd take a hint. So he brings up football instead, asked if I was checking the score. I said no, that I didn't like football. Why not? I just don't. I never met a guy that didn't like football. Interesting. Then he says, you should really put your phone down when someone's trying to talk to you. It's rude. I said, I only get 40 minutes of break per day. Don't tell me what to do with them. It's bad enough we can't leave the plant, so being on my phone is how I like spending my break. He said, well, break time is supposed to be for getting to know your coworkers. You don't have to be a jerk about it. No wonder you sit by yourself. Then he got up and moved. I told my girlfriend after work, and she thinks the guy is probably lonely and looking for a friend, that I could have been nice to him for 20 minutes instead of basically telling him to go away. I feel like just because we work together doesn't make us friends. I'm there to get a paycheck. I don't want to move up or anything. And who wants to talk about work while they're on break? I have a feeling if I did it once, then he'd keep bothering me on every break. Am I the jerk for refusing to put my phone down when someone was trying to talk to me? I'm gonna say not the jerk. He's not entitled to your break time. Yeah, it might be rude of you, but you were just hoping he'd take the hint. When he didn't, you didn't make it about him. Just how you prefer to spend your break. He can be upset all he wants. It's really not that unreasonable or uncommon to have no interest in spending your personal time with the same people you have to spend your work time with. My Karen mother is expecting me to sleep in a backyard tent on Christmas. I, 18 female, am the youngest out of 4 kids. My siblings are 31, 28, and 25. We were raised by our dad and stepmom, and our biological mom lives in another country with her husband. She wants me and my siblings to spend Christmas with her this year and has offered to pay for our transport and visas. My siblings are all married and have kids and are going to bring their spouses and kids with them. Our mom's house is quite big, and she said she'll spread out air mattresses in the living room and there's a guest room. She didn't say anything specifically to me about where I'd be sleeping, so I assumed I'd be sleeping on one of the air mattresses. Well, one of my brothers told me that my mom expects me to sleep in a tent outside. I honestly thought he was messing with me, but when I asked my mom about it, it turns out she did. The conversation wasn't in English, but it basically went like this. Me: brother said that you expect me to sleep outside in a tent. Is this true? Mom: yeah, I thought you would be fine with having your own tent. Me: why didn't you talk to me about it? Mom: I didn't think it would be a problem. Is it a problem? Me: it is. I don't want to sleep outside. Mom: I don't know what you want me to do. There's too many of you. Me: can I sleep on the couch? Mom: no, my husband likes to watch TV late. You'll be a nuisance. Me: I don't know then, but I'm not sleeping outside. I'd rather not go. My mom told all of my siblings about the conversation, and now they're all mad at me and told me to just suck it up and go. They said I'm being selfish and making a fuss about nothing, and that I can't expect any of them to sleep outside with their spouse or their kids. I told my dad about it, and he's now really upset with my mom and said that she's being a mega jerk and alienating me on purpose, and they had a huge fight on the phone. My siblings are all mad at me for causing this. Edit: my mom lives in Western Europe, so it will be very cold there and most likely snowing as well. Not the jerk. The fact that your stepdad wanting to watch TV at night is more important than you being able to sleep inside tells you exactly where you stand in your mother's priority list. If your jerk siblings continue to pretend that sleeping outside in a tent during winter isn't a big deal, tell them that you'll accept their offer to switch beds with them. Not the jerk. What kind of person expects a guest, regardless of whether they're family or not, to sleep in a tent outside when everyone else gets a cozy air mattress inside? I just can't wrap my head around that. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you still go to your mom's or not? Please let us know. I think it sounds like it could actually be fun, as long as it's not too cold in there. Knock money off my paycheck for grammar mistakes? Let me point out all the mistakes on my boss's work. Years ago, I took a job in another country for a very small company that taught English. My responsibilities included reviewing and editing lesson plans created by non-native English speakers. Many of the lessons taught EU English, while I'm accustomed to US English. My boss, and the only other native English speaker, was from the UK. Therefore, there were certain nuances that I was unfamiliar with. That being said, I was one of the better people on the team QAing, but I wasn't perfect by any means. There were often mistakes I saw slip through on lessons not assigned to me to review, but I never purposefully called people out for them. It was kind of a crappy company and bad lessons to begin with. But if there were glaring mistakes, I would quietly fix them. One pay period, months after I had been working there, I received a decrease in my pay along with a note explaining that the reasoning was because of X and X mistakes that had slipped through on my work. I was upset as this was not a part of my contract, but I couldn't really contest it in this foreign country. The note did, however, note that this decrease in pay for mistakes made on job duties was for all employees in my department. I knew that there were tons of mistakes on other lesson plans that weren't mine, so I pulled up the first one and began sending messages in the group chat of every mistake I could find, and there were a lot. I did this rapid fire until my boss, who was sitting across from me, sent me a message that essentially said, "Don't worry, I can assure you I am being held to the same standards and expectations," before he got up and walked away in a huff. After he walked out of earshot, my other coworker laughed and said he had messaged her and asked how I knew that particular lesson was one he had QA'd. I told her I didn't know. I had just pulled up the first one I knew there were tons of mistakes on. I didn't get any more money taken out of my paychecks after that, but I left the company shortly after. Edit: have learned I'm stupid and it was British English. Am I the jerk because I'm forcing my parents to choose between two options they loathe? I, female 38, have recently gotten a not great medical diagnosis and prognosis. I'm at peace with it. So I've sat down with my husband and figured out my will. Obviously, he will be receiving most of the estate. He has to take care of himself and our kids. He and I both have decent, if not spectacular careers, and he likes to work. My oldest brother is a gigantic jerk. He's an addict, and my parents have wasted their lives trying to help him. They spent so much of their time and money on him, they had very little for my sister or myself. I don't hold this against them. I love my kids, and I can understand the urge to help them with their problems. The real issue is that my brother has abandoned my nieces with my parents. I tried to get custody of them, but I'm not a member of their church, and my parents cut me off when I left home to get a college education instead of staying home and helping them like a good daughter should. Their congregation helped them hire a lawyer to keep the girls away from me. But strangely enough, after the girls were out of my reach, they stopped getting any financial support. So on my will, I'm leaving my nieces money. Not for them to spend however they want, it is only to pay for their post-secondary education. If it isn't used for that by the time they're 25, it will be donated to a charity that my parents hate. It advocates for women and reproductive rights. I sent my parents a copy of my will so they knew what was coming. They're the kind of people who would take out a loan counting on money from my passing to bail them out. They're calling me a jerk for not giving them the money to take care of my nieces. They're complaining because they're going into debt taking care of the girls. I offered again to take custody with my husband. If I can have them for 2 years, I know I can get them on a path away from that church. My parents won't relent and are saying that they will challenge my will if I leave it like this. Good luck. My lawyer is confident that I have protected the money. I just heard from my brother. He's calling me a jerk for depriving his kids of help and forcing my parents into a bad position. I asked him when the last time he sent them money to help with the kids was. He yelled at me and hung up. My husband supports my decision, but a lot of my family is calling me and asking me to help my parents with no strings attached. Am I the jerk? Not only are you not the jerk, but you are an absolute rock star. I'm sorry to hear about your prognosis. It's a terrible situation, but you could not possibly handle it any better. You sound like you've done your research and you've got things covered, so feel free to disregard this advice. You might want to give them a minimum amount so they won't be able to contest the will. Not the jerk. I'm very proud of what you're doing for your nieces. Your parents suck and don't deserve a cent. On a personal note though, I wasn't able to get through college by the time I was 25 for medical reasons. Sticking it to your parents through progressive charities might feel good, and I fully support it. But maybe once your nieces are adults, make sure they're able to receive physical and mental care. Tell me I shouldn't buy delicate binoculars without insurance? Fine, I won't buy them then. Many years ago, I had some hospitality tickets for F1 at Silverstone. I think it was the year Hamilton won his first season. I decided to get some binoculars to take with me, so I go to the local Jessups and talk to a very nice sales lady who seems genuinely excited at the idea of going to F1 at Silverstone. She suggests some binoculars and I get my wallet out. At which point, sales guy comes bounding over, pushes sales lady out of the way, grabs the binoculars I was going to buy from her, and asks what I'm thinking of using them for. Barely lets me answer as he grabs some that me and sales lady had already discounted because they were twice as much, and suggests that they would be a much better option. Mildly irritated at this point, I was enjoying chatting to the sales lady. I list some reasons that she told me that they weren't a good fit. Sales guy rolls his eyes, says she's just a trainee, and that the expensive ones are really the ones I want. Eventually, it takes quite a stern no to stop him from trying to upsell me. At this point, I really just want to walk out of the shop, but I suffer from the occasionally debilitating condition of being English, and that kind of embarrassment is just too much to take. Instead, I'll buy them and go home fantasizing about all of the cool things I should have said. So, card in hand, I'm just about to pay, and he asks about whether I want insurance. No, just that. Thanks. You really should have insurance. They're very delicate. It doesn't take much to knock a lens out of alignment. No, it's fine. Just the binoculars, please. You probably shouldn't buy them without the insurance. Finally, given a way out, I nod and agree, and he runs out the back to get the paperwork for the insurance. He comes back and asks me for my name for the insurance. Oh, no, sorry. I was agreeing with you that I shouldn't buy them. Not if they're that delicate. I'm quite clumsy, so I definitely break them. He tries to backtrack on some of the ones that sales lady had already suggested, saying that they would actually be perfect for me. I reminded him he said they weren't very good. Then I thanked him for helping me see that I really didn't need to spend all that money on binoculars and just walked out. Am I the jerk for asking my neighbors to be more considerate? My neighbors are a young couple in their 30s, Annie and Bill. They've had a baby a couple of months ago. The baby came home last month after 3 months in the hospital. My wife is friendly with Annie, We can't have kids, so whenever we have a neighbor with a baby, my wife makes friends with them. We have my mom staying with us, as she is no longer able to live independently. My mom has complained several times that she can hear the baby crying, especially at night. My wife says the baby has bad reflux, and they're trying to deal with it. The baby screams several times a day. It's awful listening to that poor thing cry for so long. It does feel like they aren't dealing with the baby as quickly as they should be. The baby screamed for 10 minutes solid the other night. My wife says that the baby screams when they bathe it, as Annie has told her that the baby doesn't like being bathed. Baby is always crying and it's frustrating, especially when mom needs peace and quiet to recover from surgery. Since the baby has come home, there's no longer any room on our street during the day as we have on-street parking. This is making it difficult to get mom to appointments as she can't walk to the end of the street to get her in the car, but we also can't park in the middle of the road as it blocks the road and can take over 10 minutes to get her in the car due to mobility issues. There had always been at least one empty bay outside our house, but now it's always occupied by either someone from their families visiting or one of the healthcare professionals involved in the baby's care. I reached a breaking point at the weekend. Mom had been home alone all day and she was in tears when I got home from work. Wife was away visiting friends. She said that the baby had been screaming all day long. It was still crying when I came home. I went and knocked on Bill and Annie's door to ask if they could quiet the baby. I could see through the frosted glass that Annie was set on the bottom of the stairs, not even trying to calm the baby down. When she came to the door, she apologized and said she had been trying to calm down the baby, but the new medication was making him constipated. She said that Bill had to go pick up an emergency prescription to try and help. I snapped, as she clearly hadn't been trying, as she was on the stairs, and told her that they need to be more considerate of others, and if she didn't quiet the baby, then I would log a noise complaint with the police. Annie was upset at this and closed the door in my face. When my wife came back, she told her what I had said. Now my wife is angry with me as I was making life difficult for a young couple with a sick baby and is giving me the silent treatment. I feel like I may be in the wrong because of how my wife has reacted, but at the same time, the baby is always crying and I think they need to be more considerate of their neighbors. I'm going to get hate for this, but thank God you can't have kids. Your lack of empathy and inability to sympathize are outrageous. Real babies aren't like dogs or dolls. I would hate to see how you would have treated your wife or your own kid. You're the jerk. On-street parking means it's game for anyone, even if it's an inconvenience to others. Filing a noise complaint because of a crying baby is ridiculous. I actually hope you do, and you come back here to indicate how big of a laughingstock you are for doing so. Expecting someone to be able to magically stop a baby from crying that has health issues is also unreasonable. That's not how babies work. Just because the baby was crying when you went over there to make your ridiculous demand and wasn't being held doesn't mean that the parents aren't actively trying to soothe their kid and instead are taking a moment to catch their breath, as reasonable parents and people oftentimes do when things get stressful. Am I the jerk for scolding my sister in front of everyone while she's going through a divorce? Me, 29, female, and my husband, 36, male, went to visit both of our parents. They live 8 hours away from us by flight, and it was expensive, but we do it because holidays mean a lot, and also to see my niece, Rue, who's 5. She's my world, and I love her to death. For this vacation, her mom, my sister, Mila, who's 29, was missing for most of our family gatherings and was spending time with her boyfriend and doing part-time. We have a good relationship, but I was really worried that Rue doesn't get time with her mom and angry that she just leaves her with all of us. She leaves in the morning and comes back late. Apparently, this has been going on for months. For a brief context, she's separated from brother-in-law and she wants a divorce and he wants to try. But she came back home because they were not compatible and it's messy. So since she is a single mother, I send her allowances for her and Rue and also for other housing expenses directly to her so she can give our parents rent and focus on Rue and have a smooth divorce. I sent her a total of $10,000 and my fund money account, which she has access to and uses. She sees a therapist and I get charged for this as well. Additionally, my husband pays for her divorce lawyers. We both work hard and we're not rich, but we are good enough. I know it's not easy what she's going through, and I've never questioned her when there are withdrawals. But this holiday, I was so mad at how she is and who she's turning into. According to Mom, Rue is missing her mom and has withdrawn so much. She's not been giving them rent and not helping around the house and doesn't even take care of Rue. Mom works and Dad looks after Rue until Mom comes.
They're also old and cannot really actively interact with her. My mom was upset at me for not helping Mila out financially, as they are also struggling with 4 mouths to feed. I've never been angry as I was then. I observed her for a week, and the second week I confronted her privately. She said being a single mom is hard and she is de-stressing. I called BS and asked her what has she been doing with the money. I'm glad that she's working part-time, but what is she doing with Rue when she is comfortable? And even more angry that none of the money I give is going towards Rue or helping with her. She stormed out of the room and said I'm ruining the holidays and being judgmental, and she's going through so much. I told her how dare she say that after I give her everything, even when I don't have money left to buy new clothes for Christmas because I thought it was worth it. And if she doesn't stop and focus on Rue, then the money stops. I was so mad, I forgot everyone could hear us. All our parents heard it. I felt so awful for exposing all this, but I was so mad. She called me a jerk, and so did my brother, saying I should have picked a different time. Now that I'm calm, I feel like I am the jerk for exposing her like that. Vacation has been awkward since. Not the jerk. But OP, stop the money now and give it to your parents instead. You gave that money to her in good faith that she would use it for her daughter, but she hasn't. You didn't ruin the holidays, she did with her greed. Not the jerk. The gravy train stops now. Where is she spending it then if she doesn't help with rent, which I presume should be the bulk? Your sister is a jerk, an entitled moocher jerk. If you don't like it, sue me. Okay. So a bit of background. I was a dumb college kid and in a mixer met the cousin of a classmate. We hit it off, started seeing each other, and when the red flag started going up, was looking for a way out. Except we weren't as careful as we should have been, and she wound up getting pregnant. Was not super excited about the news, but figured I had to take responsibility and at least try to make it work. Stuck with her throughout her pregnancy, was there when my kid was born, would wake up at ungodly hours to feed and change her, but still, the writing was on the wall. Things came to a head, and I finally told her I could not take it anymore. I'd happily take responsibility for my kid, but no way in heck was I spending any more of my time with her. She took it about as well as one could expect, and I didn't see my kid for a few months. All this while I was working 12 to 36-hour shifts. I just gave zero hoots. Got a lawyer involved, got a child support agreement in writing, could see my kid on the 1 weekend off a month I got. That was that. Years go by, kid grows, I change jobs, but we still adhere to the old agreement. Except that when mom gets mad or is in a bad mood, she won't bring my kid, or starts just spewing crap through messages, and at first I took it, but as the years went on, it started to get really old and really annoying. So my kid is now 5 and lockdown hits, and the mom starts saying how she's not gonna bring my kid because of the risk, and I agree. Except, I eventually found out she's taking her out to parties and playdates and stuff, so it's not so much about her not exposing my kid as it is to me not seeing my kid. I confront her, argument ensues, and she says those magic words. I'm not taking her, my kid, to see you, and if you don't like it, sue me. Okay then. I get a lawyer who specializes in family matters, and even though in my country it is very difficult to gain custody from the mother, I have a pretty strong case. Mind you, at this point, I didn't want full custody, since her maternal grandparents obviously loved and cared very much for her, and she cared for them, and I had no intention of putting her through that, but it could be used as a leverage point. So we go ahead with the custody battle, and her mom just absolutely loses her crap, telling me, how could I do this? Why am I not thinking about our kid? To which I just reply with a screenshot of her telling me to sue her. So during the time that the custody battle goes on, my kid is remanded to my care, and her mother cannot take her or visit. And let me tell you all, those months were great. Our relationship definitely got stronger. Got to teach her the alphabet. Yes, she did not know it when I saw her. Got to show her my musical tastes, some heavy metal stuck, which is something she would have never been exposed to. It was great. The hearings were dragging on, and even though there were screenshots and proof that showed what a horrible mom she was, my lawyer told me it was not likely to go my way. But we got to leverage that for a better, ironclad agreement, and decided to not prolong it further. Apparently, custody battles can go on for months or upwards of a year. So now, instead of once a month, I see her every other week, plus school vacations, plus holidays. She lives in a different city 3 hours away, so seeing her more often was not feasible. Plus guaranteed video calls, plus being informed of anything that goes on with her, such as doctor, dentist, school.
Now my kid and I share stuff with each other that we did not do before, and she's much more excited to spend time with me. As for her mother, she is much more civil now, takes great care of what she does and says, and I doubt will dare me to do anything ever again. Edit, just to give some more info. Her mother would be emotionally manipulative, along the lines of she went 2 days without saying a word to me because of something, even though our apartment was tiny. Nothing along the lines of unfaithfulness or trying to pin a pregnancy on me, though it did cross my mind. I don't really care about blood relations since I am very much my parents' son and cannot stand either of them and am not on speaking terms with either of them. So blood ties don't mean much to me, and that's also why I had no help from them in this situation. And as much as I would have loved to have more custody, my work schedule just did not allow it. I would literally fall asleep with her in my arms after being at work for 36 hours with 2 to 3 hours of sleep max. It was a rough time to be sure, but absolutely no regrets. Reply. A slightly similar situation when I went through a messy divorce, through mediation, and it was agreed to a 50-50 split of my daughter. I'm a firm believer a child should have equal access to both parents. Anyways, just before my ex and I were about to sign the dotted line, she was moving out of the family home the coming weekend. My ex decided that as a father, I shouldn't be allowed 50-50. Instead, access should be every other weekend, and I should pay child support. She came up with this plan, having spoken to her half-wit sister, who did the same thing with her husband. He was happy to take the back seat. I'm a very hands-on and involved father, always had been. This conversation happened in the car and is something I will always remember. Conversation went a little like this. X. I've been thinking about the child arrangements, and I don't think 50-50 is fair. Me. Oh? X. Yeah, I think it should be more like a 70-30 split. Or better still, 80-20. Me. Really? I'm surprised you would want that, but I'm sure it's for the best. X looked rather happy, surprised but happy. Me. So, how do you want to have your 20%? X. What? No, I wouldn't have it for 20. You would. You've got this the wrong way around. Me. No, you have. I've agreed to 50-50 because that's how it should be. If you dare try to mess me about at this stage, then it will not end well for any of us. X. She's my daughter, and mums have more rights. Me. Then I will do everything I can to get full custody. It will get nasty, you and I will never speak again, and I will use every penny I have, every penny my family has to fight for full custody. I'll use your health, mental health, inability to provide a clean and safe environment, everything and anything I can to get full custody. We will end up hating each other, and it will be her who will suffer as a result. X. I just don't see why you should be allowed 50-50 when most men don't want it. Me. Ask yourself this. You are leaving the family home. Do I have to allow you to take my daughter? X. She's my daughter. Me. She's also mine, but you have no legal right to take her. I can refuse, and then you will have to fight for access. X. After a pause, she said, let's stick to 50-50. In the 6 years since that day, we have kept to more or less 50-50. It tends to work out that my daughter spends more time with me, closer to 60-40, and it works out well for her and I. Fight the good fight, brother. My stalker invited himself to my birthday dinner. I, female 27, met this person, male 32, in 2019 in a bar in our hometown. He's a friend of a close friend and was soon to be joining the armed forces and leaving for basic training. He asked me out and we went out on one date. I wasn't feeling it and gently told him this as one of his parents had just passed at the time and I was being mindful of his feelings. I've made it pretty clear now on several different occasions via text, Messenger, Snapchat, WhatsApp. He added me on them all, and if he doesn't get an answer on one app, he will try the next until I reply. He's now on home leave for the holidays for the next few weeks, which falls over my birthday. I had planned a night with my close friends, one of which is the mutual friend we have in common. He asked me to go to dinner via Snapchat, and the conversation went like this. Him. Do you want to grab dinner when I'm home? Me. I don't think that's a good idea. Thanks for the offer though. Him. Just as friends? Me. Look, I'm finishing my current job on Thursday next week. I have my birthday dinner on the Friday and start my new job on the Monday, so I don't have much free time, I'm afraid. Him. Where are you going? Me. Ironically, the bar that we first met in. Him. Aw, is mutual friend going? Me. Yep, pretty sure he said he's coming. Him. Great, I'll see you there. Me. Speechless. Him. If that's okay with you. Me. Well, the table is booked for 6 people, and there's 6 already going, so there's not any room left for dinner. Him. You'll be done by 2030, so I'll be down then. I pretty much was stumped and completely missed the trap I just walked into. I'm 100% sure he wouldn't see this as a friendly thing and will spend the night trying to flirt with me, which makes me really uncomfortable. I'm not attracted to this person. I hardly know him or speak to him. I never reach out first, but am polite in my replies and rejections. But he's just not gotten the hint and has expressed that I'll change my mind. I know my own mind, and it's made up. He calls me pet names, which from people I don't know, I absolutely abhor. It makes me want to crawl out of my skin and set it on fire. My question is, would I be the jerk if I told him not to come? Or is it too late now, and I'll just have to risk him showing up and making me uncomfortable? This is making me so anxious, it's keeping me up at night, so I'm turning to my favorite subreddit for some help. Am I the jerk? ETA. A few people have suggested that I've been saying soft no's to this dude. On each of the 4 occasions he's asked me to hang out one-on-one, I've said a hard no. Examples: dinners, a drive, hotel, and a trip to the Christmas markets in another town. I've said I'm not interested in dating anyone, which is absolutely true. I'm at a fantastic place in my career, starting my dream job in 9 days, which I didn't think I'd get before I was 30. I have a fabulous family, brilliant friends, and my pup, who's like my doggy daughter. I absolutely have no interest in adding a man to my life. Since this happened, he has found my Tinder profile, which goes unused, sent me a screenshot of my profile picture with a comment of, "Nice profile," which I replied, "Thanks." He then said, "Welcome, sugar." I then called him out and told him it's insulting to call me a pet name and to just stop because he's been told several times not to do it. He was very offended and then asked how I was getting on with Tinder. I just don't want to cause any awkwardness with our mutual friend because he and I are very close. ETA 2. Thank you everyone for your comments, advice, and time. I've sent this dude a cease and desist message and been as blunt as I can possibly be. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to change the venue, as getting a table for a large party this close to Christmas was hard in November. It's impossible now. We live in a relatively small town. The nearest city is about 45 minutes away by public transport, and it's a nightmare to get home after midnight. I've also had a long conversation with our mutual friend, and he understands that I really feel uncomfortable with his advances and knows to reiterate the uninvitation of this dude if he reaches out to him. It might not stop him from appearing, but if he does, the bouncer and bar staff will be my first port of call, so I can leave early if need be. I'll be ticked off, but at least I have a bailout plan. ETA 3. I received a response about 10 minutes ago, which read, "Hey, whatever, I'm seeing someone anyway," and then, "Delete my number." 1. I never saved it in the first place, my dude. 2. If you're seeing someone, why are you asking me to dinner? What the heck? Dude is a field of red flags, and I'm happy it's over with now. Hopefully there won't need to be an update, and I can enjoy my birthday in peace. Thank you to everyone who reached out, commented, and awarded. You're all very kind. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend he acts like a needy 5-year-old? I've been applying for jobs recently. This morning, my boyfriend, Ian, was still sleeping and my phone rang. It was one of the jobs that I applied for, and they asked if I had a minute to talk. I said sure and went in my office and shut the door. I had been in my living room anyways, but noise carries more from the living room and I was trying to be quiet. Well, right after I closed my office door, Ian got up and I heard him walking around. Then he opened the door and came in. He asked, "Who is that?" "Oh, is that your mom? Tell her hi." I was still talking to the HR person, and he said, "Is that Mary? Who is that?" I got up and waved my arm, trying to wave him away, while still trying to answer the HR person's questions, and went back in the living room. He followed me and said, "Is that Kim? Ask if her and Kyle want to go for lunch with us later." So I went in the kitchen instead. He followed me again and started unloading the dishwasher. I started walking back to my office, and the HR lady said she wanted me to come in for an interview Thursday at 1. So I said, "Thursday at 1 works great." While she was explaining how to get there, get in the building and everything, Ian comes running up and says, No, not Thursday, today. I work Thursday." I thanked her and hung up. I was annoyed. I said, "That was about a job, that wasn't Kim. You're worse than a nosy 5-year-old that needs attention." He said, "Well, you could have just told me who it was." I said, "Yeah, in the middle of a call, I'll say, 'Hold on, my boyfriend wants to know who I'm talking to.'" He said,
Well, you could have wrote it down or something. I was just curious. I get up and you're already on the phone. Sorry, you don't have to be mean about it.
He's done this crap before, and it's annoying. So I just stayed in my office, and I've been checking emails and messing around. I'm just irritated because if that HR person heard him, I would have looked unprofessional, and he was disrupting my concentration. I have ADHD, and made it harder for me to focus on what she was saying. Maybe I shouldn't have snapped like that, and I'm overreacting. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Set boundaries. But my whole question is, why in the world do you put up with that behavior? I would snap if someone was following me around trying to figure out who I'm talking to and it's about work. How does him working affect when you can go for an interview? OP. He thought it was some friends of ours and I was meeting them for lunch. Not sure why he thought that, but... Reply. Are you sure he actually thought that? Some people try to exert control over their partners by sabotaging things like job interviews. OP. I'm trying not to think he'd do that. He's made some comments about, must be nice to get off weekends because he has to work. And he asked why I'm applying for jobs when my job is good enough. But I just sort of figured he wanted me to just be happy where I am, like he is with his job. Reply, red flags. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.